We are paid, that's all. We are God.
Hey guys! This is the fourth part of What If Naruto Was Stuck in a Time Loop. They've been there. They've done that. And they didn't even get a shirt to prove it. Reload, because sometimes things are just as they seem to be, and at times they are even more. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 7. Avalon, go forward and don't dare to stop, or she'll kill you. Step up. Twist. The foot stomps, the concentric ring of chakra invisible to the eye but oh so visible to the senses. The footing. The footing and the balance, because acrobatics, as fun as they were, would make him lose. Solid, like him. Solid, like the center. Solid, and fluid like his power. The arms move, not really striking, more like lifting, and dragging and snapping. Atomy. Not the fist, not crude, not dependent on power alone. The pulse moves with it. Along it. Fluid and rapid, the earth under his feet, the power in his body and the vector of the force. And the rock breaks. It doesn't shatter. It doesn't explode in the orgy of rapid power his body can field, it just breaks. Smoothly, as if cut. Many disdained it, the simple power of a well-placed blow. He did as well, at one time. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't grand, it just looked so damn ridiculously plain. Aikijutsu. A simple name for a terrifying power in the hands of a master. He was. Not completely, no. His mind knew what to do but the body, a different matter altogether. But then he was a cheater. He could burn it into his muscles, tear them, grind it into his bones as he broke them, and soon, the body knew what the mind had mastered a long time ago. He wasn't like Sasuke, with Sharingan spinning, feeding the information directly to the chakra coils, forcing the body to move even if muscles didn't know how. He wasn't like Sasuke, with the instinctive mastery of combat, of pace, of tactics and maneuvers that switched effortlessly from the simplistic Konoha Gukken, through the Uchiha Kaisen Ryu, the direct and terrifying might of Koken, the deceptive softness of Taijiquan, the elegant Bakwazhang or the styles that he didn't even know the names of. It was ironic. They were both shinobi, both hardened warriors with experience, gods, but did they have experience? But no matter the Sharingan, no matter the time, no matter the motivation. Sasuke was brilliant. Oh, it wasn't that Naruto himself lacked talent, no. He had the intuitive grasp of tactics in combat even before, the instinct of a fighter and unquenchable thirst for victory that few could match. But Sasuke was an artist. Fluid and graceful, deadly and skilled beyond what most thought possible. Even if the body wasn't up to it, even when the wheels of the Sharingan lay dormant in the onyx eyes, he had it. As ironic as it was, Sasuke was the better shinobi between them. More precise, more skilled and possessing an arsenal of combat jutsu that few could equal. Itachi certainly couldn't. In combat, Sasuke shone brightly, like an edge of a masterwork sword. Luminous, sharp and unstoppable. Naruto didn't shine. Naruto flickered, like a chaotic flame. Up and down, back and forth, in and out of visibility. Coarser, both more direct and more devious than the Uchiha heir by far. They both knew it. Where Sasuke was a shinobi, Naruto was the magician. The trickster, the charlatan with very wide sleeves that hit tricks as crazy as they were entertaining. The master of the forge, the prince of overkill, the lord of lore and the king of crazy. That was what Naruto was. But even the jester needs to know how to strike when the toys are gone and jokes spent. Needs a fast eye and a coordination of the hand, all taught by that small, smiling man at the shrine in the hind end of nowhere. Sasuke gained the sword skills and the wisdom of a priestess from a beautiful Miko of grand knowledge and refinement. Naruto learned the deceptively simple power of atomy from an old man sweeping the stairs. Overall, he thought he got the better deal. After all, it all came to power in the end. All who chased it, all who were so enamored with it. True power this, true power that, I'll show you my power, I need power, I crave power, this is the true power. Utter rubbish. Really, it almost made him cry. Cry because he was laughing so damn hard he had tears in his eyes. Power? Poor idiots. There is one simple lesson to be learned about the ethereal dream the greedy chase after, for whatever the reason. The so-called true power didn't exist. It was an illusion for the greedy, a mirage for the weak and the opium for the obsessed. The simple truth about power was that all was power. In the end, it only came down how you used it. Turn weakness into strength. The old shinobi adage that held true, yet one that so few shinobi practiced, choosing mirages and empty promises instead. Besides, power without direction was aimless, and always came back to bite you in the ass. Sometimes even to chomp you whole in one meaty crunch. Oh, that Naruto knew well. Baiichi Fox. Naruto chuckled, stepping forward as Sasuke danced, stopping on the top of a rock, balancing like a child that found a new favorite game. Was the fox's power? Of course she was. Turn weakness into strength, the burden into a prize and a sad fate into a glorious destiny. When life gives you lemons, squeeze them and make champagne. Let the morons around you gape like children in a circus at the trick and break their heads how the fuck you did it, while your sexy assistant robs them blind with a smile. That was how you went about it. Of course, in this case his sexy assistant had 9 tails and was more it than she, but then, was he not a charlatan? She was whatever he wanted her as, and since he was a he, that meant it was a she. It was more fun that way. And, really, don't bitch little bitch. Kitsune were the creatures of shape-shifting powers, no? The legends of foxwives were still told to children far and wide. Well, save for Konoha, of course. But then the last foxwife that appeared left more than just a broken-hearted man in her wake. No matter. Water under the bridge and the Shinigami's robe, and all that. The debt to the village paid, the threat over, thank you very much. Now all that remained was the debt of a more personal nature and bond that would send the seal scholars screaming and running for the hills had they known the true meaning of the sacrifice they pushed onto a child too young to know or choose. Everything has a price, no such thing as a free lunch, you know. And this lunch was more like a month-long imperial feast and was expensive. Oh yes. So very expensive. After all, the world wasn't fair, but karma, while a bitch and liking it, always paid her dues. That, and Lady Benton was one damn hot and fine lady to seduce and leave breathless, moaning your name time and time again. She loved it, the slutty Lady Luck. But did you hear him complaining? Hell no. The fists met and Sasuke smirked, pressing the advantage before spinning with a kick that would have taken his head off had he been anyone else. Remember, go forward and don't dare to stop, or she'll kill you. Bitch. Sasuke's laughter resounded over the small, rocky patch of terrain that claimed to be an island, and she came down, feet first, even as she spun in a corkscrew maneuver. Screw is right. She's screwing me over. So step forward, and punch, kick and move like your life depends on it, Jinchuriki. Or she'll crush you. She'll kill you. Tighten the distance, get the good footing and cut her in the fucking middle distance. And pray that she doesn't go into Bajiquin fast enough. That rake palm thing hurts. Close, that's the only way. Because Sasuke was like a demented rabbit on speed. One that seemed to grow fucking wings, claws, and became a dragon with more limbs than he could count. It was so damn fucking humiliating. All that power, all that I'm Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, hear me fucking roar, kind of power, and he was thrown around like a rag doll by a sexy little waif that wasn't. Bitch, just didn't cut it. A point for me. She said smugly, leaning on one of the rocks, almost mocking him with the lazy grace and a come hither gesture. Again, keep dreaming, bitch. Naruto snorted, cracking his neck. Do I look like I'm down? Not yet. But then. The haughty toss of hair that annoyed him and did some goddamn fucking awful things to Sasuke's chest was languid and slow. Painful. Damn painful, really. Why did he agree to fight her when she was wearing nothing but the rather tight, backless kunoichi apparel anyway? The apparel that was almost gone now, and of course he was too stupid to surrender or back down. The deviant bastard was too amused to stop, and he had a sneaking suspicion, nay, a fucking certainty, that it was all about that tantalizing bit of flesh in the end. After all, he knew her, him, damn, who cared right now? And still, they fought. Spun and weaved in that dance of skill, tearing muscles and sincere desire to beat the shit out of each other, dominate and go even higher and higher until they broke. A sort of sadomasochistic retelling of the entire process of learning that took them from the shattered beginnings to now, a kind of inane return to the basics feel that they both craved. But in the end, it was all about fun and beating the shit out of each other. Sasuke-chan smirked, stretching, before entering a dance-like move that ended with a kick that missed his throat by centimeter. Fun. Fun all the way. You want to play? The blonde smirked, as he felt the familiar, oh-so-welcome feeling of feedback from his Kage Bunshin making it back. Oh yes. Honey couldn't be sweeter in this case, alright. Let's play, bitch. The scroll wasn't needed, the seals were in his memory as if he carved them himself. Sasuke jumped back as the chakra erupted. Kuchios, Azumaya. And walls rose, even as Sasuke tried to punch, growing straight out of the ground and letting her crash against them. She stopped, sliding down, before spinning on top of it gracefully. So. The Neo girl eyed the rock slabs covered with seal lining all over. That is what your horde was cutting the rock for, I told you I just needed the materials for it, eh? Naruto chuckled. Behold, the first in the history, completely independent stonehouse summoning. Faye. It is just rock. Sasuke snorted, before kicking back, her fingers moving in the string of familiar seals, and smirked as the nails of her fingers lengthened, the telltale haze of chakra appearing around them. Eat some kugi, then. She sneered, slashing at the wall viciously, only to pale. Did I mention it is small enough for me to channel my chakra through it? Naruto buffed his nails, while Sasuke slid down, cursing and leaving a trail of sparks. No? So sorry. The Uchiha heiress lowered her head, shaking. Bastard, that hurt. She screamed, before kicking up a piece of rock, and twisting upside down. Naruto's eyes widened as he felt the familiar backlash of initial gate, and he hit the dirt as Sasuke's bare foot made contact with the rock, sending it flying at his previous position. Right through the summoned wall. Shit. The pale blonde looked at the hole. You want to kill me or something? Shut up and just fucking die. Snapped the kunoichi as the Daitapa slammed into the rocks, lifting Naruto up, only to be consumed by a rapidly growing silhouette of the Karyu and Dan. The dragon exploded, sparks of charred rock showering the ground, and Sasuke snarled, turning to the spooked Jinchuriki who just completed his Kawarimi. Calm down, damn it. Naruto growled, slamming his fingers into the rock, the columns or stone rising rapidly, only to be nimbly evaded by the Neo girl. Calm down. Calm down. Sasuke-chan snarled, before pouting and pointing at her hand. Look what you have done to my nails, you stupid moron. Naruto stopped, staring. Nails? He said dumbly. Here I spend my days carefully tanning, picking up dresses, planning to look my damn best to the point of avoiding any strenuous activity, and you ruin it? I am supposed to look sexy, sophisticated and seductive. Broken nails do not sexy, sophisticated and seductive make. She huffed. Naruto blinked owlishly. Sasuke? He said finally. What? The Uchiha genius snarled. And, really? He didn't want to know how the fuck did that deviant manage to make a homicidal snarl look both pouty and cute at the same time. Well? The kunoichi asked dangerously. Broken nails or no, you'll still look good anyway. Naruto offered weakly, deciding that, after all, discretion was the better part of valor in this case. Sasuke blinked, frowning. I will, won't I? She said speculatively, looking down at her body and perking up. After all, I am damn hot, no? Naruto just sighed. What was that, moron? Sasuke-chan asked sweetly, her eyebrow twitching. Naruto took a step back, laughing weakly. So he was a coward. Big deal. Dealing with the enraged, Oiroke Sasuke-chan was far more dangerous than dealing with male Sasuke. Those hormones could be damn fucking scary at work, especially when her appearance came into play. I can't hear you, Naruto-kun. She sing-songed sweetly. Yes, you are damn fucking hot. He said quickly. Ha. Sasuke-chan smirked as she leaned towards him. Point for me. Again. She hummed. Naruto blinked owlishly. What ash? The kunoichi threw her hair over her back, the scented ponytail sliding over his face like a curtain of silk as she turned on her heel, walking away with the fluid grace dancers would kill to have. Naruto stood there, a confused look on his face, before an understanding dawned. His eyebrow twitched. Why, that sneaky, fucking, underhanded, shameless, oversexed, slutty little bitch. He snarled finally, managing to find his voice. And that's another point for me, you know. Came Sasuke's gleeful voice from the distance, and Naruto cursed, staring balefully at the silhouette sashaying towards the nearby boat with a spring in her step that she didn't bother to hide. The blonde slumped, sitting on a nearby rock. Well, fuck. He muttered dejectedly, before a stifled chuckle erupted from his throat. God damn him, her, fuck it. Naruto threw his head back, his body following until he hit the ground, not stopping his chuckle. Damn that bitch, man, but she got me in good. He muttered, before laughing again. Though you have to give her one thing. She is rather hot. Still chuckling, the Jinchuriki got up, following his friend to the boat. It was a beautiful day, after all. And a really hot one. It would be a shame to waste it. The beer was cold, the seals keeping it chilly just the way they liked it. Because after so many years that weren't, some of their tastes and actions were just the same side of the same coin, over and over again. They, polarized, for the lack of better word. Opposite in some cases, alike in others, and still on the same coin in the end. They learned to accept it, live it, and even like it a long time ago. The choice or lack of it stopped to matter. The time was no toy, but they could use it in the ways few could. They could adapt to it like few could as well. When one lost things, and places, and people and almost everything else with inevitability that was just plain ridiculous, one learned to adapt to the change swiftly. Go forward, or die. Man. That was a great workout. Sasuke stretched on the sun-warmed deck, not even bothering with a blanket to lay on. On the other hand, when one could use chakra as cushion over one's body, it was kind of redundant. Yeah. Naruto took a chug off his beer. There is always something funny about that time, you know. Yes. The Neo girl snapped her arm to the side so fast it became a blur, only to slowly pull it back to her on the very same path. It is like filling out the kid's coloring book, you know. The shape is there, you only need to add the color, that damn déjà vu. She smirked. Seems like you can get used to everything, no? Almost. The blonde frowned, balancing the bottle on his finger. It was more than just showing off, his chakra control was shitty beyond belief for the things he could do, and he needed it as fast as he could get it, as much as he could get it. He never liked it, that cursed handicap. At least Sasuke had it easy, a large part of it being mental. The bastard had a ball of the time controlling the relatively modest amount on a level that would shame some medic neens, while every scrap of control in Naruto's case had to be fought relentlessly for. You're overdoing it, you know. Taking a burn like that. Oh, relax, relax. Sasuke-chan sighed, pulling her glasses down a little bit. I'm just using the opportunity. You are going full burn, right away, bastard. You want that power that much? The Jinchuriki frowned, stealing the glance at the gloves on Sasuke's otherwise bare hands. Not really, but, if I had the burn, it'd be a shame to waste it. And I admit. She chuckled. Working on that kind of meager power level is just so very annoying. Don't overdo it, eh? Naruto took a long swing lazily. It is bad enough you are locked like that. But you get whimsical, Yano. The Uchiha raised an eyebrow with a smirk. Whimsicaler, rather. The blonde muttered, sighing. It gets to you, that thing. Don't overdo it, okay? I've been handling it for decades, Naruto. She snorted, taking a swing off her bottle. Give me some credit. The Uchiha smiled. Besides, it isn't like you'd let anything happen, no? The blonde blinked, before snorting. Noticed that, didn't you? Your chakra, Kyuubi or not, is very distinctive. She tapped her chest lightly. Deep in here, it is all clear. If your definition of clear is mingling of 3 types of chakra over the celestial gates. The blonde shook his head. I treat it as a gift. She chuckled. The blonde rolled his eyes. Gift, she says. He muttered, draining the bottle with one swallow. Shit, you're really fucking crazy, you know? Who's crazier, the crazy or the one that follows him? The Neo girl said cheerfully. Ha! Naruto reached, snagging 2 thrown, or rather fishtail-batted, beer bottles out of the air, summon usage at its finest in his opinion. Well, almost. And a seal to prevent the bottle from exploding all over when opened, a marvelous invention that took more effort and knowledge than most would believe. In that case, out of the crew of this most wonderful boat, Hana's the single fucking craziest person, period. Well said. Sasuke grinned, before blinking as she took a look at the beer. The grass country lager, huh? She looked to the side, noticing Kisi lazily swimming and playing with water around the case of cooling beers. What grass lager? Naruto frowned. It is a Zaya dark stout. You blind or something? Sasuke pointed at her bottle and Naruto blinked. Well, I'll be damned. He muttered. I guess we got lucky on the resupply. Not that lucky, Naruto. Sasuke said with an odd look. I had my logger held in the cargo room, under all the food. I didn't even open that case. Did your Kage Bunshin? The blonde shook his head. I'd know. He said, scratching his chin. Now that's odd. I'd say. The Neo girl muttered. Who stocked that case in the water? Not my Kage Bunshin, I thought you did. Are you kidding? We've been getting sweaty since early morning. She puffed her lips. As if I had the time, or the need to go into that cargo hold. So if you didn't. The Jinchuriki paused, and the duo looked at each other, before they looked at the frolicking siren, who had apparently found playmates in some young dolphins, yet managed a cheerful smile and wave at them. Naruto. Sasuke said after a moment. How independently intelligent is she, really? The blonde looked at his friend for a moment, before opening his beer and taking a long swing. To tell the truth, I have no bloody idea. He said cheerfully. Sasuke blinked owlishly. What? No idea. At all. Naruto grinned. Remember what I told you about the connection between her and the theory about the Mokutan? Sasuke froze. You created a summon. A quasi-sentient, A-class Sutton capable, tactically advanced, chakra trident equipped, Kyuubi-powered living weapon, without knowing what she can or can't do. Sasuke said slowly. Not exactly. It is more to say I gave the blueprint and, kind of had her cooperate. The blonde said sheepishly, before his grin widened. Awesome, isn't she? As if sensing she was being praised, Kisi casually outpaced the dolphins, making it back to the boat with speed that was almost unreal, before gracefully swinging her tail and coming to a stop with a cheerful wave and a wide smile. The blonde waved back, chuckling. Sasuke stared at Naruto for a long moment, before she opened her beer and drained the half of it with one swing. Naruto? She said after a long moment. Yeah. The blonde said distractedly from observing the perfectly built silhouette of his siren, who was more than happy to show off for her master. There are moments where you really, unquestionably, overwhelmingly fucking scare me. She said calmly. And, without a doubt, this is one of them. Ha! Naruto blinked, looking at his friend. Sasuke just sighed, patting the blonde mane with resignation. Nothing, Naruto. Nothing. Sanshu no Jinji, Naruto squinted, looking at the map. Not very impressive. They don't need to be. Only the name matters. Sasuke sheathed the Majinkan, the contained malevolent presence disappearing as if it was never there. In some sense, it wasn't. Sasuke could wear it like a cloak, but in the end, there was only one master in that relationship. The three sacred treasures. The blonde snorted. Exactly. The Uchiha heir said with satisfaction, pulling on her gloves and snapping her fingers even as she trailed them in a half-circle, up and down. The brief, violet blaze outlined the shape of the crescent moon in the evening air. How do you like your legends and fairy tales, my lord? Naruto's eyes widened a fraction. Listen, for this is a story as old as time. Listen, for this is the story of valor, of love, of treachery and of nobility marred with greed. Listen, O noble one, to the story of the great serpent Yamada no Orochi, and the great lord of storms Susanoo. Listen, O noble one, to the story of virtues and might, of great power and valor, of aim no Murakumo no Tsurugi that was known later as Kusanagi, the sword of wind, the wisdom of mirror of Yada, and the benevolence of the jewel of Yasukani. But, you do know that story already, don't you? Alright, what has the legendary sword and some ancient story to do with it all? Hana said skeptically. Everything. Sasuke laughed. Do you know it? The great god of storms, Susanoo, in return for the hand of the beautiful maiden Kusanada, defeated the eight-headed serpent Orochi, recovering aim no Murakumo no Tsurugi. Hana rolled her eyes. Really, that's a fairly tale, you know. Ah, of course. But, Sasuke said, waving her finger. There are many, many versions of that legend, my dear. The Uchiha chuckled. And one of them states, that Orochi, being as mighty as it was devious and unwilling to accept his loss, called forth servants, 8 warriors of great power. Realizing he was outnumbered and seeing that the situation was indeed dire, Susanoo called forth champions of his own. The Inuzuka blinked. What was that demented deviant-s? Wait. I remember something about this, the three thunders, the mortals who helped the gods out of their own will. She muttered, frowning. Behold, my dear, the trio were the mighty if brash lord of the nearby lands, accompanied by his calm, yet sharp cousin and the wise, beautiful priestess. Upon them, the grateful kami of the lands bestowed gifts matching their strengths, and names to mark them forevermore. Sasuke reached for a blast note, swiftly cutting it apart and detonating it, the scattered pattern forming a brief, blazing circle. The brash, yet powerful and courageous lord had been given the aim no Murakumo no Tsurugi found in the belly of the beast, the sword known as Kusanagi, forevermore sealing his path. The kind, yet devious cousin, for his benevolence and lost barrels of sake used to make the beast drunk, was given the keen eye and symbol of his benevolence to bring him good fortune, the jewel of Yasukani. Her fingers drew a purple, blazing moon in the air. And for the priestess, who was as beautiful as she was courageous, was bestowed the mirror of Yada, so she could see things as they were, be they far or near, in her worldly wisdom. The kunoichi bowed in a most theatrical manner Hana would found comical, if not for the grace and obvious flair the Uchiha displayed. What has that got to do with anything? The older kunoichi said skeptically. What? Why, everything. Sasuke snickered, unrolling the map, her kunai stabbing a small point on the otherwise clear sector of the sea. 3 islands, once belonging to somebody, now to nobody, save for the wanderers they were recently given to. Her grin grew a little wider. The Kusanagi. She tapped a long, sword-like island. The Yasukani. Her finger circled a Magatama-shaped companion to the first one. And, last but not least, the Yada. She drew a circle over a roughly round-shaped and last of the small cluster of islands. Sanshu no Jinji. Offering the name, giving the land, and granting a title, however humble thanks to a friend most gracious. The Inuzuka's eyes widened. So tell me, my good lady. The Neo-girl suddenly was so damn close that the other woman took a startled step back. How would you like to come to the city of vice, riches, and pleasure in the company of the sun and the moon? Hana blinked owlishly. That is. Hana didn't know if to laugh, palm her face or just stare in stupor. She chose a compromise and took a swing of the expensive wine that somehow found its way onto the Enterprise when she wasn't looking. And it was expensive. Her clan, while not exactly rich, wasn't exactly hurting for money either, but that kind of alcohol she had tasted only once in her life, a few years back, and it was a truly grand occasion. Those two didn't even bother complimenting it, treating the wine no better than water, and just as commonly. Who the hell heard of using real, honest Takami Rishu as a picnic drink? She swallowed, absent-mindedly reflecting that with her second glass she probably drank through several nice, C-rank paychecks in less than 15 minutes. Though it is a nice picnic, she admitted, a tiny bit of a giggle welling in her throat. Ever since she returned to the boat after fairly nondescript mission and heard of the idea, things had just been odd. Not bad, just odd. More than usual, that is, whatever that nice, friendly, and so conspicuously absent usual entailed, anyway. After all, how often can one dine on a private island? Sasuke-chan sipped from her glass, looking at the island, or islands, rather. The Sanshu no Jinji archipelago, though it could be hardly called that, was more like a moderately sized island cut into shapes by clear lines of water channels than anything else. Still, they were separate, just not far enough for it to be a problem. A little bare and it really could be bigger, but it is a really nice spot. She decided. Hana nodded absently. When she heard of the strange deal, and she was damn sure that Sasuke was either lying her ass off or was hiding some stuff she'd rather not know about in regards to it being a gift, she expected 3 patches of dry rock, and not much else. Instead, what she got were 3 small, but far from bare islands with their own trees, beaches, and even a bit of a mountain or two. Not much. If any of them was bigger than Konoha she'd be very surprised, but still, not the sad, lifeless bits of rock and gravel she imagined before. It's not so bad. The Inuzuka murmured, looking at it critically. There is some sweet water around, from what I can smell, and enough ground to farm in a pinch, not to mention the fish. She nodded towards the fire that had several fishes slowly being roasted to perfection on it. The smell of herbs was getting stronger by the minute and she could barely stop herself from licking her lips. Naruto caught them in less than 20 minutes, and she had seen enough to know that it'd be a fisherman's paradise. As a whole, the place was a little sparse but, hell. Some work, a little sweat and I think you could build yourself a house here or something. Want one? Hana blinked at Naruto's careless question. I asked, if you want one. The blonde took a sip of wine. There's plenty of wood, a hell of a lot of stone, hell, I could build a manor here, while we're at it. There is enough stuff around. So, want one? What? It is your island, you know. Naruto shrugged. Thanks, but I only have so much time before I need to be back. She said dryly, before her eyes widened. Wait, what do you mean, my island? Well, it is. He unrolled the map. Kusanagi is me, so it is mine. He pointed at the roughly sword-shaped island. Yasukani Sasuke's, his finger circled over a Magatama-shaped island. And the Yada is yours. He tapped the round-shaped one. Haven't you been listening? Well, yes, but I thought you were. She muttered with confusion, before freezing. Wait a damn second. Time the fuck out. You mean that the islands are real? Hana, we are having a freaking picnic on one of them. Sasuke deadpanned. What do you think? So, that talk about titles is. She trailed off, looking at the grinning Naruto and cheerfully humming Sasuke. Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. The kunoichi said slowly. There is no way, no fucking way having 3 patches of rock makes you actually a noble. In this case. Sure it does. The Uchiha smirked. See, it had been a leftover of a protectorate of one of the countries that stopped existing in, well, before Konoha was around, anyway. When the wars were over, and the original owners were gone, the territories got assimilated. The islands, technically, never were, since there was nothing of interest here. They just fell under a protectorate, so to speak. So? Hana said skeptically. That just means those are pieces of rock with no formal standing. And here is where it gets interesting. The Uchiha heir smirked. You see, those islands changed hands, on paper at least, for decades, being a part of territory. All on paper. But, originally they weren't conquered, they were an autonomous territory because in the chaos of the wars no one ever took time to look at its standing from the legal standpoint. So, when the original daimyo who took the islands under the protectorate way back, was killed and his country assimilated, that territory technically never was, but wasn't dissolved either. Which meant, Hana's eyes widened, the title and rights were just in dormancy, for the owner to decide. She choked out. Oh. My. Fucking. Kami. How could anyone be that stupid? That's insane. It is politics, so it is both more often than not. Naruto shrugged philosophically. More wine, Hana-chan. I wonder if it shouldn't be Hana-sama. Sasuke said thoughtfully, tapping her cheek. She is a ruler of her own fiefdom. Technically, the woman in question stared at the duo, before sighing. Ah, whatever. What is a title between equals, eh? She pushed the glass in the blonde's direction. Pour away, my lord Kusanagi. Naruto bowed mockingly. As you wish, my good lady Yada. And if you might be so kind and grab our good lady Yasukani's glass as well, lest she become annoyed at being passed over. Indeed. Hana said solemnly, reaching for the glass. By your leave, my lady. Sasuke-chan nodded regally, if with a touch of the demure charm that was just so damn weird it made Hana's head spin. Or maybe it was wine. As you will it, my good lady Yada, my lord Kusanagi. She murmured. It is always delightful to be in company of one's peers and away from the common rabble, no? Indeed. Here we have company worthy of ourselves. Naruto nodded solemnly. Ourselves. Hana laughed hysterically, falling on the warm blanket. Aha. Sasuke circled the girl slowly. You're too tense. What? Hana blinked. You're too tense, no one will believe you have fun like that. The Uchiha heiress lectured. Relax, let yourself go, hell, drink a little and try to hold on to that slight, mellow feeling. The fan tapped the Inuzuka's lips. And do smile, Kay. You're sexy, you have your pretty claws and a handsome, rich guy, you have plenty of reasons to smile at him sexily, and at others with arrogance. Sasuke smirked, her eyes somehow becoming slightly misty and dreamy but coupled with a shameless smile and a touch of arrogance presented an unexpectedly alluring image. Hana shuddered. Ever since she agreed to this idiocy, Sasuke reached a whole new level of disturbing. 12-year-old boys weren't supposed to be seductive women. Or give their seniors lessons on how to seduce people, and not just sexually. Seducing didn't mean throwing on a come-hither smile, sexy strut and winding up in bed to fuck each other stupid before the day was done. A smile, a gesture, a word and a look, a woman could seduce a woman just as well with no sexual intent involved, as Hana was starting to discover. And the fact that Uchiha was not a woman didn't help, since right now she was technically one. So the point was kind of moot. And that fan, along with loose silk yukata the disturbing Uchiha was wearing only provoked flashbacks to the sunflower brothel and that maddeningly erotic dance that left Hana more than just a little flushed and bothered. She was no prude, but the things were a wee bit too close for comfort there. Hana shuddered again. If she had a tiny bit less of pride, she'd whimper. Why did she agree to this again? She couldn't remember, sunflower was so distant and hazy now, covered with a sweet veil of alcoholic forgetfulness. Not, you know, those clan marks would actually look very good with that makeup. Sasuke murmured. They would add a certain, feral appeal to the sophistication and silk. A very nice effect, really. Forget it. Hana muttered. There is no way I'm going there as, well, me. Not with what you have in mind. Well looky here, you're catching on quick. Naruto chuckled, taking a swing off his bottle. Shut up, you. Sasuke pointed her fan at the offending Jinchuriki but not turning her eyes away from her victim. It didn't escape Hana's attention the Uchiha could unerringly pinpoint Naruto's location every time, senses or no, chakra sensory skill or no, you just couldn't be that accurate unless you were a Hyuga. She didn't let it bother her, though, those little oddities were filling her daily life now and if she let them pile up they'd drown her. She liked her sanity as it was right now, thank you very much. No comments from the peanut gallery. It took a heroic enough effort of will not to think about her future report to the Hokage. Alcohol went a long way when it came to that, especially given the two pervs were the ones picking up the tab. Or Sasuke was, she had no idea. It got confusing, since the Uchiha seemed to hold the money but Naruto had no qualms about spending it whatsoever and Sasuke was no better. It was as if the duo simply didn't care and spent on everything and anything that struck their fancy. Like it? Take it. Just like that, no second thoughts. Hana was trying not to think what would happen if Naruto lost those poker games. Not because of the debts, oh no, she was rather afraid of what those two idiots might concoct to get out of it, which might involve simply running, blowing something up or anything and everything in between. She wasn't stupid, damn it, those yaks in Sunflower were terrified. Not merely cautious, which she'd have understood after the stunt Sasuke pulled in the brothel, but absolutely terrified, the stench of almost gut-wrenching fear hanging over them like a shroud. And the fact that the pervert duo walked through the docks with lazy self-assurance of a prince and smugness of a cat that ate the canary didn't escape her attention either. Nor did it escape her eyes that the rather pale Yakuza were treated like a cross between personal honor guard and such a canary. There was something off with the two, of that she was damn sure. Well, more wrong than what was already wrong. Or something. Overall, maybe it was better not to ask. The pace of things was hectic enough, and Hana wasn't so sure she could deal with the answers, more so with each passing day, not to mention the little pieces of chaos that seemed to come up from time to time, twisting the already rather odd situation a little more. Very good job on that makeup by the way. With that delicate use of shadow and your naturally smooth hair when you let it go, it accents your eyes, gives them great allure. Sasuke smiled, her fingers tracing the contour of Hana's face almost too softly to be felt. Why do you hide it so? You look beautiful. Oh. Yes. Like that. Hana blushed despite herself. She tried to remember that it was just a really weird 12-year-old that apparently got hit on her head one time too many in taijutsu sparring. She tried to assure herself it is just a very confused 12-year-old with a jutsu that played havoc with his head even more. She even tried to assure herself that said 12-year-old might be simply a woman at heart and as such, since he was now a she and stayed a she it was okay but she still blushed. Like a little academy chick straight onto her first crush. The only good thing about it was that not one of her fellow kunoichi or her friends was here. Oh gods, that would make it even worse. She thought with a wince. And you blush so nice. Sasuke pouted. It is better than any makeup I have, and comes off so naturally, giving you a slightly innocent, yet refreshingly honest sultry shade. Kaya. I'm so jealous. No. Wait. I was wrong. This is worse. Don't worry. It passes. Naruto said sympathetically. Somehow, that doesn't inspire my confidence. Hana muttered, turning away from the Uchiha, only to freeze. She blinked, rubbing her eyes. Nope. Nothing changed. Naruto. She choked out. The blonde peered over her spectacles, pins in her mouth as she held some piece of cloth in her hands, taking some kinds of measurements. And speaking of measurements, the Inuzuka thought dazedly. She was tall, taller than Sasuke, and more voluptuous. Not that she was fat, oh no. The body was built just as perfectly as the female Uchiha, only more curvy. Very curvy. She was a complete opposite of her companion, where Sasuke was lithe, pale-skinned, at least before the tan, and her hair were inky. Naruto was voluptuous, with an arrogant curve of hips, legs and bosom that was almost lush, coupled with the faded straw of the hair held in a manner that was almost naggingly familiar, a comfortable shirt and pants that fit him just fine but stretched quite a bit on her. Naruto, or Naruko rather, looked like a sex kitten straight from an erotic fantasy. Sasuke, as Hana found, was right. Naruko put them both to shame. Hana swallowed. Even Naruto's voice was almost unnervingly lush. Where Sasuke's was smooth, melodious, and she at times expected to hear the ancient-sounding speech of Taiyu in her mouth, Naruto's was darker, lower, and had a slight rasp that only contributed to the overall, smoky allure. Hell, give it a slight seductive note, and it was as perfect a bedroom voice as it came. What are you, ah? She looked at her bosom. That. The kunoichi nodded, not trusting her voice. Naruko has a better eye for the color and shape of kimono than Naruto. Sasuke shrugged. Shut up. Not like I know why it happens, damn it. It is like you and chocolate. The blonde grumbled, though when Naruto made it look grumpy, Naruko looked so seductively cute it was just criminal. Just remember to do the old-style kimono, alright? And don't be stingy on silk. Sasuke demanded, only to be waved away lazily. Not everyone can do it like you, you know. Are you implying something, you little bitch? Naruto said sweetly. Well, I certainly can't compare to you in size. Sasuke smirked. But it is about quality, no? Oh ha ho 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 ho. Letting go of her pride for a moment, Hana allowed herself a tiny whimper. Somehow, someway, she knew it wasn't going to get any better anytime soon. The interior of the impromptu workshop was dimly lit, but it was a deliberate action. Any chakra bleed-off was easier to notice this way, and Sasuke knew that there would be some. It was too much of a rush job not to. Naruto stood, crafting the bits and pieces of arrays on the cards floating around him, from time to time extending his hand, only to have one of them flow into his hand and be an object of intense scrutiny and some furious brush and knife work, often eating one or two blood seals before being returned to the rest. The cards looked to be floating, but it was nothing but an illusion. Sasuke knew that if she looked with the sharp wheels of the Sharingan, the array of overpowered chakra strings that held it all together would be revealed. Still, it was an interesting sight. The tiny vibrations, after effects of Naruto's somewhat poor chakra control coupled with recent forceful overburn of Kyuubi's energy, made it seem like the rectangular pieces of paper floated on their own. Sasuke quirked an eyebrow looking at a number of items strewn around, on the nearby table and on the floor. Some were fairly ordinary, like a number of fine kunai, senbon and other throwing implements, some swords that she was sure he didn't make due to their rather ordinary quality. Naruto, as amusing as it was a perfectionist when it came to his mundane weaponry. He often said that if it couldn't be shiny enough, then it should be at least badass enough. Which wouldn't be so bad if the blonde didn't go overboard. His ordinary swords could withstand cutting boulders without chakra enhancement. Most ninja would love to have that kind of weaponry. Weapons weren't the only things. There were, oddly enough, rocks, or stone pillars rather, fairly small, but still weighing quite a bit. She'd hazard a guess, a whole roll of rather nice silk, another roll of linen, wood and, a tree. The Uchiha blinked. Yes, she wasn't wrong. It was a perfectly fine, young tree with its own bucket of soil. Before she could ask, Naruto tapped one of the strings attached to his hand, dragging one of the floating cards from the rack and tapping it. A hiss and some smoke later, the card was gone, leaving a large scroll in its place. Two Kage Bunshin took the scroll, efficiently coiling it around the tree, and in a flash, there was nothing but the scroll, that was soon resealed again into a card and returned into the rack. Sasuke's eyebrow arched even higher as the procedure was repeated, this time with the stones. You are using your arsenal for trees? She asked incredulously. You never know when one might get handy. I know, but trees. The heiress looked at her friend with bemusement. Naruto nodded, before snapping his finger and flipping something red that appeared in Sasuke's direction. The Neo girl frowned, looking at the rose. She sniffed it gently. It was real, and quite nice at that, if not spectacularly large. It was quite a charming little flower, though. I have sealed a perfectly nice bush of blooming wild roses that I found on the Kusanagi island as well. The blonde grinned. Boo! And partial retrieval. Sasuke sniffed the rose again. I'm impressed. It's shoddy. I didn't have enough time. The Jinchuriki shrugged, dispatching several clones to cover the leftover objects and seal them into their respective cards. I even had to use the snap seals for that. He peered at his fingers critically for a moment, flexing them. There goes my ability to do full 5-point elemental seals quickly, I guess. Sasuke let the Sharingan flash for a moment, noticing the fresh lacerations on Naruto's thumb and middle fingers, as well as on the index one, and winced. Nasty. You carved them directly into flesh? Couldn't you have simply altered the storage ones? It was faster this way. The blonde shrugged. Not like I have a whole day and 5 elemental storage scrolls to attune it, you know. It is still nasty. Sasuke muttered. Barbaric stuff, that, but very effective. Naruto swept his hand, breaking the strings, allowing the cards to fall back and form a neat deck, before stabbing his fingers into it, and letting it seal itself fully until it was gone. Well, at least this works as it should. He murmured, before yelping and grabbing his hand as a flash of pain hit him. Holy fucking shit, but that hurts. I told you so. The kunoichi sighed, before tapping his spine, momentarily leaving the arm limp and cutting the pain away. Shit. Thanks, Sasuke. Naruto winced. Speed sealing is a bitch. Why do you do it anyway? The heiress huffed. Usually you spend a week at the least creating any arsenal. Yeah, but... Naruto winced, looking at his smoking palm. He was really going to feel it after the numbness wore out. We're limited on jutsu right now. If something happens, we'll handle it. Sasuke's face was impassive. Naruto, you are probably one of the greatest seal masters the world had ever seen, but you can't create something out of nothing. You don't have an access to a proper workshop or lab, just a smidgen of your usual materials, and only a very limited timetable. Whatever you create won't help much if we face something that we can't handle with brute force alone. You are not a god and you have limits. Give it a rest, says the guy who absorbs the half-filtered Bija chakra boost. The blonde deadpanned, only to cringe as Sasuke glared at him. The difference is, I do it on regular basis and won't hurt myself. She said darkly. Okay. Sheesh. The Jinchuriki rolled his eyes. I get it. No more dangerous science. Sasuke's glare turned into the patented, how stupid do you think I am, dead last, look. Well, much, anyway. The blonde corrected himself, before grabbing a matte black, thin bundle off the table. Come on. I have something to give to our favorite bitch. Sasuke's eyebrow quirked. Is that a sword? She asked curiously. For us? Yes. Naruto said flippantly, spinning it in his palm. For our sweet bitch? Depends if I am right or not. It's gonna be interesting no matter which way it goes. A second eyebrow joined the first. Sasuke knew that tone very well. Too well, actually. Should I? I will not blow up the boat. The blonde snapped. Some faith in me wouldn't hurt, bastard. Naruto rolled his eyes. Sheesh, it is not like I blow something up every time I work. Of course you don't. Sasuke nodded. One needs to also mention the burning, corrosive substances in astounding variety, the chakra array backlash, an attack of giant marshmallows. It was just one time. Naruto protested. And it was a honest-to-God's accident. I didn't know they'll get so big or they'll start to walk out of the lab. And the ramen golem, that little ice age, that incredibly colorful mushroom episode, where did you get that amount of hallucinogenic mushrooms? I have no idea, by the way, the tentacle lemon jello. Sasuke nodded thoughtfully. Really, I have to give it to you, you don't blow up stuff every time. Oh no. You go for variety. The Jinchuriki glared at his friend darkly. Yeah, well. Fuck you too. He muttered. Promises. Naruto's eyebrow twitched. Hana was no stranger to things like makeup, fashion or the other typically feminine skills. She might have been an Inuzuka, she might have been a war shinobi and as fierce as any of her clan, but she was still a woman and could appreciate the fortune she currently wore, not even counting the absurdly expensive jewelry and various cosmetics, which was hard not to appreciate considering she currently wore more money on her than she made in a year. Or would have, if not for the fact she had a sneaking suspicions just where the amazingly sewn kimono, or its several equally exquisite-looking cousins, came from. After all, one doesn't simply buy the perfectly tailored clothes off the rack. And these were tailored, down to every detail. All of her womanly instincts warred with her mind about wearing the simple yet elegant masterpiece on the deck like some common, Tenryo rag. The fact she had several equally fine ones in her bags didn't ease her mind one bit, though she had to admit the one she wore now was a bit odd. While lighter than any full furusode, it was still elaborate, if simpler and with a touch of archaic, almost unseen save for shrines or extremely formal functions among the high courts. It was also fairly sturdy, which she noticed with surprise, despite its seemingly frail look and wide, billowy sleeves. It was blue, with a faint pattern that seemed almost floral, until one looked at the larger representation on her sash, where that flower quickly proved to be the traditional octagonal representation of the Mirror of Yada. Those idiots, she smiled a little, despite herself. Sure, it almost felt like dress-up, considering the fairy tale elements contained within the whole charade, but then who didn't want to play the part in a gallant fairy tale, at least once? As such, bearing the Yadamon, as ridiculous as it sounded, was both an embarrassment and a rush that made her feel like she was 6 and listening to her mother telling stories during the winter evenings. Embarrassment or no, it did invoke a childish sense of awe and wonder she remembered from then clearly. Despite herself, Hannah couldn't stop a giggle escaping her mouth. No matter how much she'd want to deny it, she could see why the two idiots did what they did. It was a strangely pleasurable rush, to do something as outrageous like that, and they didn't even start yet. The Inuzuka groaned softly, as she caught the direction her thoughts were heading. "I'm going to kill those two idiots," she muttered, not quite able to stop the slight grin tugging at her lips. The young woman shook her head, straightening the sleeve of her kimono yet again, only to freeze. If her own clothes had a touch of archaic weaved into them, Sasuke's were on the other side of the spectrum completely, archaic with a minor, but fairly scandalous nods towards the modern. Save for the deep violet color and the rather elaborate nature, Hannah was sure that it wouldn't raise too many eyebrows in a shrine. Of course, priestesses didn't wear such rich, violet-themed makeup, nor expensive earrings, or an even more expensive crescent moon choker from pure silver, with the elaborate obi marked with the very same crescent moon. Hannah was also damn sure that no priestess robes that slid down the shoulders slightly so that present the generous upper part of the cleavage, nor carrying a long, thin pipe, presenting an image that was a three-way cross between a rich noblewoman, an expensive courtesan on a stroll and a shrine maiden with a touch of wild in her. The combination was both jarring like a stab towards Hannah's sense of decency and aesthetics, and incredibly alluring in the forbidden fruit kind of way, that was both dark and tempting. If Sasuke wanted to convey an aura of sophisticated, yet brazen lust, she had succeeded beyond Hannah's wildest imagination, or worst nightmares. She would be surprised if the Uchiha heir, currently heiress, wasn't swamped with invitations and propositions from the rich men the moment they stepped on the shore. The Uchiha, as if reading Hannah's thoughts, turned slowly, letting the speechless Inuzuka see every inch of the expensive attire with a flourish of a tie that moonlighted as an actress, snapping her moon-marked fan open with a smirk. Hannah, for her part, just stared with sheer disbelief, her mind refusing to even dare to speculate just how loud this whole spectacle was going to be considering the femme fatale Uchiha nutcase in front of her. Still, she expected something like this. Somewhat. Sasuke was crazy, of that there was no doubt, and she delighted in the brand of disturbing that left Hannah's sanity on rather shaky ground. After that, nothing was going to surprise her. Or so she thought, until she looked at Naruto and simply froze. Oh my. The formerly short blonde was now taller than both of them, if not by much. His previously already untamed mane was now a long, very long in fact, mass of spikes that smoothed somewhat towards the back, held in a simple, slightly wild ponytail that managed to look roguish instead of scruffy. The whisker marks were gone, leaving the smooth, unblemished skin with sharper features of an adult, though sharper and more vulpine than she'd have expected, if still rather captivating, coupled with sharp blue eyes tinged with violet. That wasn't the biggest shock, however. What he wore, and how he wore it. Contrary to Sasuke, Naruto was bereft of ornaments, but the deep crimson and burgundy of his hakama and gi served to serve the flash in an almost hammer-like manner. The same mix of old and new, but with a lazier, almost relaxed flair of someone who had money and flaunted it but didn't feel like dressing up. Loud, flashy, and noticeable to the extreme, he wouldn't be able to be more in your face and at the same time maintaining the air of casual elegance if he tried. It was Sasuke's job, of that Hana was sure. Thanks to their shopping trip and time spent on the boat, Hana knew how Sasuke's tastes towards clothes ran very well. The loud Haori with a flashy outline of a burning sun on the back was pure Naruto, though, Hana decided. She had seen an almost identical symbol before on the temples of Amaterasu, though this one was different in several ways so as not to mistake the two. The breath of the archaic, the kiss of the fairy tale, the bite of modern practicality, the touch of temptation, the pinch of scandal and the aura of money. Sasuke snapped her fan open elegantly. Perfect. Almost. Naruto nodded, tapping the scroll. For me. She cocked an eyebrow, only to blink as a very nice, if simple bamboo umbrella took the place of the ceiling scroll. Sasuke looked at Naruto curiously, picking it up, only to smile as she noticed the strangely shaped handle, which turned out to be a hilt as she twisted it, drawing a straight blade. A shikamazu with a floral pattern and held inside an umbrella? Sasuke laughed. It is perfect. I saw that little thing in Konoha, though without the blade. The blonde smiled. Thought you'd like it, and I saw a nice one in the sunflower. Enjoy. I intend to. The Uchiha smirked, sliding the blade back, before drawing it again several times in various directions. Thanks, dead last. And now, for our very own cruelly cold, yet so undeniably sexy Inuzuka Hana. Naruto grinned, throwing the bewildered woman the black bundle. Ha! Hana caught the bundle, feeling the unmistakable weight and shape of a sword under the cloth. What's that? She asked curiously, taking off the covering to uncover a fairly simple, though strangely wide kodachi. Oh, just a little something I've found. Naruto grinned. The previous owners had no use for it. Indeed, if they so much as tried. The Jinchuriki chuckled darkly. Well, whatever would happen would have been interesting, to say the least. Strange. Looks a little bit like a long kodachi or a short katana, but... Hana drew the blade, only to blink at the identical, matte black color shared with its hilt. It didn't look like paint too. Wide, and a little heavy but... Her fingers curled around the hilt, the material under her fingers fitting her palm as if tailored. There was no awkwardness she would have expected handling a new, unorthodox and fairly heavy weapon. In fact, she swung the blade slowly. It wasn't heavy. It had its weight, but it was just right. Ideal, even. Hana cut the air, up and down, before lunging forward with a stab and slashing to the side. It was perfect, the balance, the handling, the feeling. No kunai, blade or shuriken she had trained with for her whole life, none of them felt as good, as right as this. It is magnificent. She breathed. What is it? Oh, just a little something I thought you'd like. Naruto said innocently, and Hana paused mid-swing, looking at him suspiciously. The Jinchuriki smiled sunnily. Hana cocked an eyebrow. Well, I do, thanks. She frowned. But if it turns out to be another of your little fucked up ideas, I'll make your life hell, you hear me? Oh yeah. The Jinchuriki grinned cockily. Bring it on, bitch. Wherever, whenever, I'm always up for spanking your doggy ass nice and red. He waggled his eyebrows. Who knows, you might like it and ask for more. The Inuzuka woman blinked, before looking at Sasuke. You know, somehow I am not surprised by that answer at all. She sighed. You are approaching wisdom, grasshopper. Sasuke nodded sagely. The older Kunoichi snorted. Yeah, aren't I the lucky one? Hana looked on in fascination as the breeze pushed them closer to their destination. The city was an odd mix, a little bit like Konoha, with old and new meeting halfway, one overpowering the other at some points that had to be districts, or at least so she thought. The combination was more jarring than Konoha, though, both because the city was much bigger, and because there were additions that looked unlike anything else she had ever seen. Also, the city was... Is it red? Hana blinked. It wasn't just red either. It was rich crimson that she had yet to see used for buildings, and it didn't look like paint, though she could be wrong. The Akasango. Sasuke nodded. The Crimson Coral, the capital of the Coral Country. Yes, it is red. The buildings are built out of the particular type of stone that can be found around here. Yeah, but even the wooden ones are red. The Inuzuka murmured. And those roofs look like, damn, polished or something. Ah, that? That's because the trees are also red. Naruto laughed. In fact, Akasango was named because of that, and every building in the new city is red. The older Kunoichi looked at the blonde curiously. Around 15 years ago, after the first capital burned almost to the ground, the palace included, in the aftermath of the destabilization in the region cause of the Blood Limit massacre, the daimyo was so pissed that he lost the palace to fire, yet again, that he decided to have one built completely out of stone. He was also in love with the daughter of a local pirate lord, and in a crazy idea to show how serious he was, he built the palace using local red granite that was her favorite color. It cost a fortune, but the guy was both fantastically rich and crazy as all get out about her. Naruto chuckled, which wouldn't be so damn funny if said daughter wasn't the one who burned his previous palace in the first place. Still, she must have been impressed, because she actually came by to see it. Some sources say that she actually wanted to burn it down but decided it was far too nice to do so, or that she couldn't because it was a fortress. The end result is the same, the pirate princess married the slightly crazy daimyo. Really? Hana blinked. Yes. Sasuke nodded, smirking. The daimyo's advisors had kittens, as did the father of the blushing bride, who is a very beautiful but very Amazonish woman who can wrestle mountain bears, crush rocks with her bare hands and prefers ninja armor and a sword larger than she is tall to the court finery. Sasuke's smirk widened. Considering that the daimyo, aside from the fact he is somewhat crazy, is a slender, gentle man with the heart of a poet and love of arts who disdains violence, you can imagine how funny it must look. His wife is taller than him by good margin, could break him in half with her one arm, and her approach to courtroom is to bring out the sword and casually polish it when she finds the discussion not to her liking. Hana looked at the duo incredulously. You're kidding me. No. Really? Naruto chuckled. Shasti is cool that way. A surprisingly good marriage, too. A bit of a flake Shinji can be, but she really loves him. And he, well. Naruto pointed at the large red structure. As you can see. He is crazy about her to the point of insanity, I'd say. Hana eyed the palace. It was both large and quite nice, though very unorthodox with strangely round, dome-like designs of the roofs. Still, it was fairly pleasant, overall. Which still doesn't explain why the most of the city is red. The nobility was quick to accept the new fad, considering how unstable the young daimyo seemed. Which prompted the excavation of the red granite, only to discover that a nearby island has a lot of it. And, well, the crimson roofs of Akasango became a part of the local folklore, along with the incredibly romantic love story and... Sasuke chuckled, pointing at the city. They needed to rebuild it anyway. The locals are very proud of it, really. Talk about civic pride. The Inuzuka women shook her head. Crazy people. Oh, you don't know the half of it. Naruto rolled his eyes. The Akasango, aside from being called the City of Wine, is called the City of Fast, Loose, and Easy. Hana quirked an eyebrow. Fast life, loose rules, easy women. Sasuke smirked. And all the statements are interchangeable, really. Don't be fooled, Hana-chan. The blonde leaned on the railing. This city is where the rich and powerful gather. They come here for the loose laws and for the fast life. They don't want to be obstructed over much and are willing to pay for it. This city, while nice, is very chaotic and has a seedy underbelly like you wouldn't believe. If you have money, anything and everything can be bought in Akasango. You can get the rare jewelry or art pieces as easily as you can acquire a horrific poison or a completely conditioned sex slave. Everything has a price here, and anything can be bought if you look hard enough and have enough cash. Hana's eyes widened. And the daimyo permits this? Why do you think he is so rich? Sasuke quirked an eyebrow. Oh. The Inuzuka nodded slowly. I see. That ain't no vacation resort with nice beaches and tropical drinks. Naruto halted, frowning. Well, it is, but for the guys who play hard and can afford it. Get me? I get you, all right. The older Kunoichi nodded. I'm curious how you know about it, though. Her eyes narrowed slightly. The ramen festival, poker and living on the fringe of the society. I'm enough of an outcast to hear all sort of stuff like that. Naruto shrugged, walking to the back of the boat. Ow! Hana winced. I messed up this one, didn't I? She muttered to Sasuke. Not really. The girl smiled sadly. But he was right. People usually thought he was a hooligan and good for nothing, a demon brat, and thinking badly of him was easy. Considering the part of Konoha he lives in. Sasuke trailed off. Well, you need to be friendly with neighbors when you're alone. Even if they are thugs and prostitutes, you play the cards you're dealt. Hana's eyes widened. You're kidding me. She muttered that he was just a kid, how can anyone? And who do you think will let the demon brat live in his building? The Neo girl snorted. Certainly no upstanding citizen, that's for sure. Oh, don't worry. Sasuke added quickly, noticing the rising snarl on Hana's face. He wasn't abused, no one hit him or anything. The Hokage made clear what would happen if someone so much as dared to move a finger in a wrong manner. But still, it is hard when people forget. The Inuzuka woman winced, feeling a bad taste in her mouth at the mere thought. While she never knew much about Naruto, she had occasionally seen the overactive blonde urchin running around. Some of Naruto's pranks were simply too big to ignore. Not to mention he brought an injured kitten to the clinic once, when her uncle Tano was still the one running it, if she remembered right. Still, she never questioned why the adults seemed to just ignore. He was just some kid, no one really important. Even after, when her brother told some stories about Naruto's antics from time to time, she never really paid attention. Just a brat, like many others, right? But still, that kind of people. She muttered. How old could he be? 9, 6. Sasuke said calmly, and Hana just froze. Or almost 6. And you're telling me he grew up around people like that since he was 6? She hissed, an acidic bile rising in her throat. Next to, not around. Sasuke corrected with a shrug. But yes. It isn't as bad as it seems, and a fairly interesting neighborhood when you come down to it. She chuckled. Though people get a really weird expression on their faces when he calls the girls from the cane by name. Hana stared at the Uchiha incredulously. She might not be the most worldly in Izuka, but she knew of Cane, anybody in Konoha did, as it was one of the best brothels in the Red Lights district. You're shitting me. Hana, the only reason that Naruto knows how to take care of plants and cook is because Ritsuko-san lives one floor down and she taught him. Sasuke quirked an eyebrow with amusement. Where do you think the Oiroke no Jutsu came from? Naruto knew about the birds and the bees since he was 8, and more than most teenagers twice his age did, I'd bet. The older Kunoichi looked at the Uchiha without a word, before sighing. You know, that explains so much. She said contemplatively. Doesn't it, though? Sasuke nodded cheerfully. That must have been some colorful education. Hana murmured, wincing slightly. Well, let's just say he can make both a beautiful flower arrangement and knows his knots well. Sasuke-chan smiled mysteriously and Hana blinked, looking at her incomprehensibly, before paling as the understanding dawned. Sasuke-chan giggled, which only served to make Hana's glare darker. I'd call you disturbed, but somehow, I have a feeling you'd only take it as a compliment. Sasuke just smiled, nodding. You're enjoying this far too much, you know. The older Kunoichi said accusingly. Why yes, I do. The Uchiha heiress blinked innocently, her dark eyes large and so full of darling naivete that it made Hana physically ill. You mean you don't? Sasuke was a master of genjutsu. While it might seem like nothing really impressive, considering the Sharingan had the ability to trap a person in a direct illusion simply by looking at them, it went far deeper. Sasuke, in a fit of pique, boredom, anger and a mixed dozen of other reasons mixed with pure curiosity, decided to learn advanced genjutsu without the crutch of the Sharingan, and found himself, and occasionally herself, entranced. Genjutsu was supposed to be the no-brainer for an Uchiha. One look from a fully evolved Sharingan could cast one over anyone, one look could also break any of them like glass. Or so most of the Uchiha liked to think. The truth, as Sasuke found, turned out to be a far more embarrassing and bitter pill to swallow. The Sharingan could break the genjutsu, true. Go, look, notice the chakra pattern, poof. And then when you are confident in your Sharingan-induced arrogance, you suddenly feel that cold kunai picking through your gut because it was just one layers out of many, and the trick's on you. Sasuke had an epiphany and the idle curiosity turned into a fascination, one that quickly progressed into the realms of epic, if occasionally stormy, romance. Many curses, battles, mistakes, bouts of impotent fury and countless hours driving herself crazy to be able to drive others crazy. Sasuke was a genjutsu master. A bored genjutsu master. Bored Sasuke was a bad thing. Bored, gender-shifting Sasuke with an arsenal of genjutsu Yuhi Kurenai would happily kill, strip-tease or pole dance for was a catastrophe waiting to happen. For others, that is. The violet-clad woman let a small grin tug at her lips, as a passing nobleman and his entourage, 2 undercover shinobi included, slowed down as the man tried to be discreet in his interest. The Uchiha heiress let the smile widen a bit as she let the bamboo umbrella roll a little over her naked shoulder, letting the shade hiding her face disperse that one critical bit, which made the man almost stop in his tracks as he tried to pretend he wasn't staring and failing miserably. And now, for the finishing touch. She thought, letting her step carry her a tad slower, even as she let the tiniest smidgen of chakra tussle her free-flowing curtain of raven silk. She tugged at one unruly strain, tucking it back in a smooth, elegant motion, turning her head just a little to give the man a fleeting look. It took all she had to keep from laughing as the richly garbed man simply froze, all decorum and pretense long forgotten as he stared at her as she passed by. The Uchiha heiress let the smile linger, as she dismissed the lord, not even bothering to remember his face. Just another piece of floating deadwood in rich robes. Still, it was amusing, she admitted with that tiny spark of satisfaction. It was vain, but she really didn't give a damn. As long as it was amusing, it didn't bother her one bit. Not many things did, as a matter of fact. Not anymore, at any rate. Her eyes lingered at one of the shinobi, a kunoichi, actually, that accompanied the man. A short, lithe woman in a nice, though not spectacular kimono one would expect of attendant of lower rank. Nice, if slightly sharp features, the dark eyes hidden behind the lenses of simple glasses, yet not hidden enough for Sasuke not to notice the faintest glimmer of chilly arrogance coupled with minor contempt. Oh, now this is interesting. The Uchiha heiress thought, standing by one of the countless shops of the alley, the vendor comically torn between jumping up to her with his usual salesman prattle and intimidation of her looks and the obvious wealth of her garment. She could trace the eyes, still following her, from the corner of her eye, the contempt only growing stronger as the kunoichi observing her eyed the gaudy jewelry on sale, settling on full-on contempt when the woman looked for guards or attendants, finding none. This was more than just a habit or shinobi training, Sasuke decided. There was a certain poise in the woman observing her, along with an understated elegance that was hard to achieve even for professionals and told much if one knew what to look for. Not to mention, for a simple attendant, her simple kimono was of excellent quality, and her jewelry of very graceful make. Nothing rich, but it was fine. A little too fine, indeed. A noble woman. The jewelry is obviously her own, but sensible yet marking status, and the way she moves, jounin. She decided. The pattern and style of the kimono could be from anywhere but, light but solid footing, very graceful movement but not flowing and quite straightforward, Hishigata. An adept of the diamond shape, here. My. IWA, then. Quite combat capable from the looks of it, if not terribly subtle. A rookie? Sasuke let her mind wander as she idly picked up a small, if quite nice-looking earring that looked to be out of place among the other pieces on sale. The vendor tried to offer her something else, obviously disappointed until she casually threw a large, golden coin, easily worth half of his stand, on the table. The Uchiha noted with amusement as the eyes narrowed slightly in clear disdain and silent disapproval, the corners of the kunoichi's mouth tightening almost unnoticeably. Dismissing me as a sham, aren't you? Oh, you poor thing, this won't do at all. The heiress thought with amusement, a smile tugging at her lips, which widened when the kunoichi stiffened, almost unnoticeably, her eyes unfocusing that tiny, slightest bit. It was a little-known fact, almost completely so, aside from few high-level shinobi who had chosen to dabble in the technicalities, that the infamous killer intent was actually a very primal, instinctive genjutsu. A mix of hostility, confidence, and absolute certainty you will, and you won't hesitate to slaughter all in sight, cumulated, and with those experienced enough, mixed with the blood of their battles, the cold confidence of a killer and the arrogance of a warrior, coupled with subliminal intimidation, body language and even scent. All of that getting so much more kick when you can radiate your psychic imprint all over the place, your enemies included. In that way, genjutsu might be thought of to be the first, oldest and most instinctive of all arts. Which was ironic, considering it had been, next to advanced, and in Naruto's opinion real, seal arts, thought as the most difficult of them all. Sasuke, who had observed the effects of Naruto's Kyuubi-enhanced killer intent, had an epiphany. Fear was a primal function, but it wasn't the only one. What if one could use the same principle that was attributed to the killer intent for something else? And thus, the dangerously bored Uchiha gender identity is optional. Sasuke created something as ruthlessly effective as its predecessor, if far more amusing. Something called lust intent. Sasuke turned away from the stall, looking at the earring in her hand for a moment, as if admiring it. Which was a perfect occasion to notice the kunoichi, who was looking at her, face steely but eyes tracing each of Sasuke's moves with fascination. The violet-clad woman smiled with satisfaction, tugging one of her unruly strands back. The grin only widened as the Iwa kunoichi licked her lips lightly, probably not even noticing her action as her spellbound eyes almost devoured the Uchiha. Having fun, my dear Lady Yasukani? Always, Kusanagi. She said slightly, smirking as Naruto, accompanied by remarkably relaxed-looking Hana, approached the stall. Earrings? Hana quirked an eyebrow. Isn't that a slightly too simple for your tastes, Yasukani? Sasuke was impressed. While far from the smoothest operators, the Inuzuka woman slid into her role well. Though some coaching, a little bit of sake and the careful massage helped. Pressure points and chakra acupuncture were a wonderful thing. Tsunade was going to get a hug and a big thank you the next time Sasuke met the genius medic. Which she got each time, but oh well, what was the life without its pleasures? Oh, sometimes simplicity is what you need. It is all about class in the end, no? Sasuke smiled, turning her back to Naruto as she handed him the earring. If you would be so kind. The blonde quirked an eyebrow as the brunette slid her curtain of hair away from her neck. Naruto smiled with amusement, snapping his fan shut and skillfully using it to tug at the silver chain with one end, before sliding it to his palm. The delicate chain stopped, tugging at Sasuke's throat slightly, and the Uchiha let her head move back slightly. Do be gentle, she murmured with a faint smile. The Jinchuriki chuckled, unfastening the clasps, before sliding the ring on it and closing it. I'll let you off the leash, he murmured, letting the chain slide back slowly. For now, anyway. Sasuke chuckled, and Hana decided to be absorbed in the nearby vendor a moment before, thanking the gods for the experience to know when the two freaks were upping the ante, self-control to keep the facade and sake for that slight bit of mellow numbness. And Sasuke, the little deviant pervert, who probably did more than just slid her hands in a disturbingly innocent yet maddeningly arousing fashion down her oiled back this morning, without her calling the perv on it. If that didn't indicate the gender-confused Uchiha did something, she didn't know what did. She knew two things, however. 1. She was going to burn some incense for the gods and thanks for that, and 2. She was sure as hell going to make Sasuke do that again come the next morning. Because if she knew one thing about those two, things were sure as hell not going to get any better around here. Sasuke smiled, feeling the chain slid down her silken skin, the cool of the metal a pleasurable touch over the burn and that little excitement welling inside her. She felt the earring coiled on the chain brush over her skin, throwing one last look at the now blushing, wide-eyed Iwa kunoichi. Oh, she had plans for that earring, and that little Iwa sweetheart, though those could wait. After all, the moment of anticipation between reaching and getting for the prize was so pleasantly entertaining. Like a feeling of freefall. The little kunoichi and her earring could wait until the right moment. Meaning when she felt like it. Sasuke chuckled. This was getting better and better. Naruto's idea was excellent, and exactly what they needed. Perhaps her blonde friend needed a reward. She threw him a shrewd look from under the long lashes and the blonde eyebrow quirked in response. Naruto smirked, his whole posture relaxed and slightly mocking. Bring it on, was said without words, not that they were needed, with that infamous, gleeful spark lighting his eyes. Oh yes. Sasuke thought with a smirk. Things just keep getting better. Chapter 8. Casino Royale. The inn was a large, luxurious building, obviously designed for the standards of the upper class. By the quality of the varnish and the graceful, unobtrusive service, it was obviously the upper tier of such establishments. Hana had no doubt that even a daimyo would find it acceptable, what with its own private onsen and every possible commodity on the grounds. Of course, Naruto and Sasuke being their usual selves didn't find it sufficient. A little sparse, but we'll take it. The Uchiha lit her long, expensive pipe lazily. Of course, honorable guests. The short, elegant woman, the owner, smiled cheerfully. I would offer the rooms on the eastern side, they have an excellent view on the... I don't think you understood, my lady. Naruto sauntered in, waving a garishly loud, orange fan to and fro. When she said that we'll take it, she meant it all. The matron blinked. Excuse me? She said after a moment. Isn't it obvious, Chigusa-san? Sasuke exhaled a large cloud of minty smoke. All of it. All of the inn. We're taking it. You don't expect us to share, now do you? She quirked an eyebrow, pronouncing the word share with something between incredulous disdain and dismissive arrogance. Ah. Yes. Yasukani Dano, we have guests booked. The older woman said uncomfortably. I don't think you understand the situation, my good woman. Sasuke's voice was like honey. Kusanagi-sama wishes for no disturbance while he rests. The owner's composure was admirable, but then she was used to dealing with both rich nobility and their extravagant wishes. The Golden Sparrow, however, was a place for the truly rich and blue-blooded, and far from cheap. To commandeer the entire inn. Forgive me, Yasukani Dano, but maybe just a floor would be adequate? She asked carefully. It is a large place and I assure you only the finest of guests will be here. In fact, the Honorable Asahina Dano will be hiring the western wing, and as such I assure you that no rabble will disrupt your rest. The onyx eyes glimmered as the violet-clad woman turned to the matron slowly, only to halt as the snap of the fan carried through the room. Asahina, as in Asahina Kaoru, the matriarch of the Asahina clan? The blonde asked curiously. The very same, my lord. The matron bowed, grateful. While the young lord was a loud and arrogant individual, he was obviously more reasonable than his companion. Masuno Chigusa, a former oiran and a companion of rich and powerful before the winds of her life somehow provided her with a rich and luxurious resort for the elite, a gift from a grateful patron, actually, was no stranger to powerful commanding and beautiful women, being one herself. But Lady Yasukani was in the top class among those. And dangerous, oh yes. So very dangerous. Chigusa thought privately, her middle-aged, yet still flawless, face betraying nothing as she looked at the young man. If Yasukani wasn't a high-class kunoichi courtesan belonging to the young lord, Chigusa would eat her obi. Any other woman might be put off by the treatment, but the ex-oiran was shrewd and knew the game. Indeed, she played it herself, if decades ago. The moment she realized just what she was dealing with, the somewhat rusty skills of the shadowy court power play came back to her as if she never left her profession. The young lord laughed. Very well, Chigusa-san. He nodded with amusement. I will take the eastern wing. If the Iron Kaoru herself finds it suitable, far be it for me to dispute her taste. Kusanagi-sama? The violet-clad woman quirked her eyebrow. I still find it. Give it a rest, eh? The young man chuckled lightly. Who knows, she might be good company, no. I'd hate to be bored. The orange fan tracked the contour of her face. If anything, I think her company will be amusing. The more conservatively clad of the trio said, standing by the balcony. Asahina Dano is certainly a colorful enough a figure. Ah, Yada-chan, are you insinuating something? The lord said innocently. I don't know, am I? Yada responded glibly. Why, you wound me to the quick. The blonde touched his heart theatrically. You know I only have my eyes for you. My good lord is too kind. The brunette's voice was slightly mocking. Why yes, I am, aren't I? The man smiled sunnily and Chigusa had to resist a smile. For all of his boisterous nature, the young man was certainly a lively and personable fellow. Very well, it seems all I can do is to accept my defeat with grace. Yasukani said with a sigh. Kusanagi-sama, still so easygoing. Ah, you love me that way, Yasukani-chan. He sing-songed, waving his fan. As much a curse as it is a blessing. The violet-clad woman smirked. Why, I am beginning to feel unloved. The blonde squinted almost comically. I need to remedy that. He grinned, grabbing the Lady of Yada by her obi. There are hot springs here, no? Indeed, my lord. Chigusa clapped once, summoning a young, graceful maid in a light blue yukata. Harumi-chan. Please show Kusanagi-sama and his guest to a private spring in this wing. The maid bowed, smiling to the blonde and his companion. Please, this way. Later, honey. Join us when you get a minute, eh? The blonde waved, before grabbing his other companion, and hefting her over his shoulder. The woman gave a small yelp. In the land of twilight, under the moonin. The blonde sang. We're dancing for the idiots. What the Kusanagi? Put me dash. The young lord didn't seem to be bothered, instead just grinning and singing a little louder as he walked out, the lady over his shoulder. Ring around the roses, jump to the moon, we sing with the castanets. Chigusa blinked. My. He is certainly a spirited fellow. She murmured. You have no idea. Sasuke-chan smirked, before turning to the innkeeper. Let us finish the formalities then, Indeed. The matron nodded. The wing is spacious, and I assure you that the Golden Sparrow has the highest possible standards. She smiled faintly. And I assure you, my lady, that any concerns you might have about the privacy are unfounded. Our service is both discreet and very thorough. Sasuke's eyebrow rose up slightly. You are presuming much. She said softly. Forgive my lack of manners, my lady. The older woman smiled serenely. But I thought to clear the air between us, so to speak. Under my roof there are no shadows past those of my home, and those are warm and welcoming for my guests. The tone didn't seem to change, but the quality seemed smoother. Flowing and silky, if warm. Ah! Sasuke nodded, her eyes widening slightly, and Chigusa felt like smiling. Some things one did not forget, and despite the tense situation some part of her rejoiced at the soft game of hints and shades of truth. There is nothing strange that you believe so. I, however, have my doubts. The younger Kunoichi waved her fan gracefully. Kusanagi-sama can be very enthusiastic. A privilege of youth, and I shall endeavor to cater to it with all the grace we can muster. The former Oiran said pleasantly. Oh, will you? An inky eyebrow rose. He is a man of vigor and zest for life. Undoubtedly. Our service will endeavor to satisfy both as much as this humble abode is able, then. She said with the same serene look in her eyes, the tiniest of grins tugging at her lips. It was so refreshing. Yes, that was the word. Refreshing. Usually the security detail was so boorish, leaving Chigusa nostalgic for the days where the daimyo were men of cunning and manners, with their guards reflecting that. Nowadays she got those undeniably efficient but almost painfully straightforward men and women with their demands, nosy disruptions, and appallingly mercenary sensibilities. It was so refreshing to see a kunoichi of class and refinement who knew what her duties were. I expect nothing but the best, then, and leave it all in your hands. Lady Yasukani gave the former Oiran the tiniest of bows. I shall trust you in this. I swear your trust is well placed, milady. Chigusa bowed back. You shall not be disappointed, and I believe the young lord will not be either. She smiled. Should my maids prepare the futons? The journey must have been troublesome without the attendants to assure his comforts. Not yet. Sasuke smiled, snapping her fan open. But I believe some refreshments would be in order for the evenings. Maybe some music, some entertainment. Chigusa let a small smile appear on her face as she bowed. It was so nice to be on the familiar ground again. She hoped the young lord planned to stay for some time and sample the Golden Sparrow's hospitality. Interesting guests were so rare these days. Understated luxury and elegance were the words that came to mind when thinking of the Golden Sparrow. At first Hana didn't understand why this inn, which, despite its almost absurdly large size, looked to be more modest than some of its louder neighbors, was so incredibly expensive. It took a while, a tour of the premises and a private hot spring to make Hana realize that Golden Sparrow wasn't an inn to rent, it was an experience to be lived through. The understated elegance showed in the quality of the varnish and artful, yet modest finish of even the least important details of the furniture. Simplicity and modesty, but one in the most sublime taste that was expensive to emulate and worth a small fortune to posses. The luxury in the graceful, smooth-faced maids moving like elegant shadows that made one doubt they were there, yet smiling and providing any assistance one required or wanted. Sometimes before Hana even realized she wanted it. It was almost creepy, at first, to find a serene, softly smiling woman in the Golden Sparrow yukata waiting with a spread of snacks and sake as well as bath implements. At first it weirded her out. She had never had anyone assisting her in bathing since she was 6, but the women were really good. Discreet, soft-spoken and so graceful that she stopped minding the attention and skilled hands. As such, when she flowed, for there was no better word to describe the gait after the skilled hands of a masseuse and delicate ministration of the bath girls brought comfort to her muscles and seeped the warmth into her bones, into the hot spring area, she was both relaxed and mellow. Coupled with warm sake and Sasuke's ministrations before, the fact that her blonde companion was quite naked didn't faze her. The concern when the two servants gently shed the soft bathrobe from her shoulders as she sat nearby was just a momentary stab that had a hard time to get through the mellow haze. Besides, How was she supposed to freak out if it would send their cover crashing down faster than Wave's economy? Fortified by the alcohol, hazy scent of incense and the massage, Hannah slid into the hot spring next to the blonde, the warmth of the water and slightly chilly touch of the stones providing a deliciously clashing experience. She shivered lightly, the body slowly getting used to the rapid changes in temperature. Naruto, who was sipping some sake, back propped on the warm rock, his naked silhouette halfway in the water and uncaring of the discreet stares of the maids or Hannah's momentary shock, observed his companion with amusement as the maids retreated, leaving them alone. Well, and who is the pervert now? He said with a chuckle, eyeing her breasts. It is just the cold. The Inuzuka said lazily. She'd decked the little bastard, but they had a cover to maintain. She was damned if she let anybody know what she was doing here. Besides, she felt too good to argue. Actually, I was referring to the fact you got naked without a fuss, but if you say so. The blonde's grin widened. Hannah froze, simply staring at the blonde with a look between incredulous shock and mortified realization. Naruto chuckled, before gently pushing a saucer of alcohol into her hand. The Inuzuka automatically raised it, swallowing the contents, the strangely honeyed taste sliding down her tongue. A moment later, her eyes widened almost comically, as the honeyed, silky warmth exploded into a raging but pleasurable inferno in her throat. Coupled with heat of the water and chill of the rocks, the experience was just too much. The kunoichi let the air out with a hiss out, sliding into the water, her body shivering slightly, a flush over her face. Oh! The young woman exhaled, feeling a slight vestige of the oddly pleasant vertigo. That was intense. The amber ice, Yada-chan. Naruto grinned. The spirit of wine, the liquid essence of bliss. His grin widened slightly, eyebrows waggling. One of them, anyway. Han didn't bother checking, she knew full well where he was looking given the level his eyes were on. She snorted softly before taking a careful, small sip of the alcohol again, this time ready for the burning sensation and the silky smooth delivery. What? No, Snappy, come back. No, die pervert. The blonde quirked an eyebrow. What for? Hannah shrugged. You're ready for it and you do it for kicks anyway. Bingo. Naruto smiled cheerfully. You're learning, my gorgeous chickadee. Faye. The young woman squirmed for a moment, letting her whole body straighten and lean back again, this time far more comfortably, though far from anything considered proper. But then, she was naked in front of a 13-year-old horn dog who proved he wasn't talk and was friends, and what that friends entailed she really didn't want to think about, with a shape-shifting freak of nature who didn't seem to regard gender as definite or even important. Not to mention the current situation. It was as far from proper as it fucking got. If she cared about it, she'd be a nervous wreck. And alcohol helped, anyway. This chickadee has sharp teeth and even sharper claws, my dear lord. Why, you're saying that word so mockingly. Naruto scared. Hannah raised an eyebrow, looking at the walls while Naruto just waved his fingers in a one-handed tiger seal. Don't worry. We're safe. Our voices can't be heard beyond some artificially created white noise. The Inuzuka blinked. How? She asked curiously. The sound is vibration and my affinity is futon, Yada-chan. Naruto shrugged. Unless I wish it, you can't hear me. So that is how you amplified your voice. Hannah muttered, frowning. Useful. You have no idea. Naruto grinned, remembering a certain conference and a very horny Namida Suzume who decided she didn't get any for far too long. It was unbelievable how much of a wildcat that woman was. He disregarded her for tens of resets, until that day and that accidental meeting. It was then that he understood why Suzume was the teacher of kunoichi, and why she was usually so prone to scowling at the girls during the lessons. He knew damn well she did. Oryoke no Jutsu was good like that, and he was a very curious guy. Curious enough to attend kunoichi lessons, where the added bonus was the anonymity and immunity from the cold stare and dismissive attitude of most teachers. While those glasses and rigid posture made Suzume look like a stern librarian, the moment she saw fit to smile, good gods, but that woman could be hot. Just a brush of makeup, and a smile, a kimono and that flowing grace. There was a reason why Sasuke admired Suzume to the point of near worship. Irika had no idea what he was missing, and Suzume liked him. Given half a chance. But then, Irika was blind and deaf as far as women were concerned. Not gay or, like Kakashi, having issues with human contact, just dense. Still, making love to Suzume over the almost paper-thin roof of the Jounin-infested intelligence dispatch building was an experience. The experience, as far as he was concerned. No idea at all. He smiled at his thoughts. So it seems. Her face was unreadable as she sipped the amber ice, and I wonder if anyone does. She added to herself, before shaking her head. What are we doing here anyway? Drinking good alcohol, resting in luxury with no strings attached and admiring the view. He smiled, eyeing Hannah's form with shameless appreciation. Despite herself, Hannah blushed a little. Covert glances from the overly horny teenager or two she was used to. She was attractive and her choice of attire did garner her a look or two. This, however, was something else. Could you stop that? She murmured. Why? He smiled, shrugging. You're a very attractive woman. I like looking at you. I know you are a bundle of fucking hormones and all, but this is serious, damn it. I want to know. Bundle of fucking hormones? Naruto looked at her oddly, before throwing his head back and laughing loudly. Hannah frowned. She knew embarrassing the little horn dog was almost impossible, but she hoped he'd at least get his kicks and leave it or tone it down, like he did before. On the other hand, there was no Sasuke to trade banter with, so maybe that was the case? And what's so damn funny, you horny brat? FF fucking, hoh hormones. Naruto guffawed, choking out, before losing it again. Oh my fucking lovely Lady Benton. That's gold. He kept on laughing. The kunoichi blinked. I honestly don't get it. She said with puzzlement. Ha! Naruto wiped the tear from the corner of his eye and shook his head, still chuckling. No. I don't imagine someone like you would. Hannah frowned. I am not stupid, you know. She said with irritation. Just explain it to me. You really want to know? He quirked an eyebrow, and the dog mistress nodded. Fine by me. He refilled his and Hannah's saucer. I am a Jinchuriki. Sasuke told you that, right? Hannah nodded with confusion. What has that to do with? Patience. Naruto raised his hand. What I am about to tell you is an S-class secret known to exactly 5 people in the world, including Hokage and me. You can't talk about it to anyone. Not your pals, not your brother, not even your mother. Get me? No one. Hannah sobered, nodding slowly. Okay. Naruto nodded, leaning back. One thing you need to know, chakra system of a kid and chakra system of an adult differ. Not much, usually it is the sophistication, the volume of chakra and size, but they do differ. The most changes happen during the puberty. I know that. Hannah frowned. I am a veterinarian, our dogs go through something similar as they grow. Ah. So you know about the age/size/channeling volume correlation? He asked. Hannah nodded. It was pretty basic shinobi anatomy, really. Any medic worth his salt knew it. Children usually had less chakra because, like everything, their chakra system was growing, adapting and maturing. Which was why adults had far better chakra control than prepubescent kids ever did. Good. That simplifies things. He scratched his head. The deal is pretty simple, really, because the fur ball is in me, the seal allows our chakras to mingle a little. I get some benefits out of it, like the constitution, healing and flat-out inhuman stamina. Well, at least you get something out of it. Hannah murmured thoughtfully. The price tag sucks, but it has some benefits. No. Naruto tsuked. You ain't listening. Benefits are nice and fine, but what happens when that bestial, mingling and very inhumanly potent chakra meets puberty? The blonde took a sip of his sake. Puberty pushed because the body matures as fast as it possibly can to handle the amount of power it gets from the constant workout Kyuubi's toxic energy provides it. Hannah's eyes widened, and the young woman blanched slowly as the realization dawned. Oh fuck me. She whispered finally, white as chalk. Yes. Exactly. Naruto said calmly. And those 2 maids too. She stared at him, dumbfounded. Inhuman stamina, remember? Naruto smirked. Oh. As for what we're doing, it's easy. The blonde smiled. We, a hot breath licked her ear, are creating a legend. Hannah's eyes widened almost comically, saucer falling from her numb fingers only to be deftly caught by Naruto. The Inuzuka women whirled with panic to see Sasuke, naked as the day she was born. The irony didn't escape her, really, gracefully sliding into the water by Naruto's side. Oh. Nice. Naruto's eyebrows rose as he peered at the naked woman. Very nice indeed. I thought you'd say that. Sasuke-chan smiled, sliding next to Hana, causing the Inuzuka heiress to freeze. Wow. She murmured, eyeing the artful design on the phoenix she was sure wasn't there before this day. Is it a tattoo? A genjutsu/ninjutsu hybrid? Sasuke sighed. It breaks on Kai, though. She looked at Naruto. I might. The blonde shrugged. If you want to, I'll see about that. For now I prefer it more natural. She smirked and the violet phoenix stretched its wings, the design enveloping Sasuke's firm breasts before sliding upwards, as if taking flight and vanishing. Now that is just a spectacular waste of chakra if I ever saw one. Hana snorted. It is cool, though. Sasuke just smiled, in that serene creepy way. I knew you were a good choice. The Uchiha heiress murmured, that off smile going strong. Oh yes, whatever. Hana said, looking at the Neo girl oddly. What is that legend stuff about, though? I told you, didn't I? Sasuke accepted a saucer from Naruto. Silk and satin sheets, champagne and sex, money and seduction, all connected, all loud and flashy and beyond decency. Sensual and shocking. For all of that, we need a legend. Not just a cover story, but we need them to see, to crave, to believe. The onyx eyes flashed, and for a moment, Hana had an instinctive desire to run. To stand up, board the first boat out of here and leave those two deviants behind, but she swallowed. But it was exciting. Like a fairy tale. Like a legend. Hana's eyes widened. Ah. See it, you do. Naruto smiled triumphantly. Yeah. That's more like it, Yada-chan. So, that is why. She said slowly. Even in private, yes. Sasuke nodded, leaning to Hana. You don't get to act, you have to live it or it will be shallow. Feel it. From here. She tapped her chest gently. Craft it, feel Yada and her emotion, let her become more than just an illusion one could break. Allow her to laugh at a joke, cry when she is hurt and feel desire when she is tempted. Let her breathe. Let her live. Sasuke's hand traced the contour of her face. Smile, Yada-chan. For this is your happy birthday. You are insane. Hana murmured, feeling oddly faint and weak, water and alcohol only amplifying the gentle trace of fire left by Sasuke's warm hand. You say it like it is a bad thing. Sasuke chuckled, a low, throaty sound. Come with us, Yada-chan. Let us show you the sky and all the stars. The crimson of the Sharingan flashed briefly. They are only beautiful at night, you see. What, are you, genjutsu? The Inuzuka heiress said weakly. No. Sasuke laughed. There is nothing here that isn't yours already. It is a fairy tale, eh? Naruto, who was, to Hana's astonishment, still by her, meaning she really didn't move, even if it felt like she did, smirked. Cover stories are so boring. If you have the story, why not use it? Let it go, and enjoy the ride. Drink and be merry, chickadee. For tomorrow is tomorrow, and we will know not when the day shall die. Sasuke chuckled. Breathe it all in, enjoy life. We won't judge you. All we ask is for you to join us. Let us. The featherlight touch slid over Hana's face. If you don't want to, we won't make you. But is it so bad to live a legend? To grasp it with both hands, even if for a few nights? The Uchiha heiress lips could have or could have not traced Hana's jaw, she wasn't sure given the dizzy spin on her senses and the state her mind was in. The hot breath on her ear might have been one as well, she wasn't certain. It shook her to the core, though. The clashing heat of the hot spring, the scent of alcohol and jasmine incense and Sasuke's perfume, sweet and spicy, so strong now that she could taste it on her tongue. She couldn't think clearly like that. And, to her astonishment, she didn't know if she wanted to. Smoke and mirrors, Yada-chan. Sasuke chuckled. How about it, this little fairy tale of ours? Hana licked her lips. It was then that she realized they weren't dry, they couldn't be with the steam rising as it did, obscuring her already hazy vision, and the taste of the scent on her tongue, sweet and stark, spicy and misty, Sasuke to the extreme. The Uchiha heiress smiled, sliding back almost bonelessly, like a snake, the dark mane trailing like silk over Hana's skin. It felt almost painful to allow it to go. Her cheek felt so cold without that breath and silky smooth fire warming it as well. The older kunoichi swallowed, before closing her eyes and rubbing the bridge of her nose. She was an Inuzuka. While many thought their clan feral, and not without a reason, they were far more honest with their emotions than most. Far more in touch with the wilder, more primal aspect of themselves as well. Well shit, Hana sighed, before blinking as she opened her eyes, slowly looking off to the side. I really hope that this is a piece of rock poking me. She said sweetly. Well, it is certainly as hard as one. Naruto smiled cheerfully. Carefully, preferring not to check, Hana slid away that tiny bit, stopping right as she touched Sasuke's rather shapely breast. The Uchiha quirked an eyebrow. The Inuzuka heiress pinched the bridge of her nose. I fucking can't win, can I? Sasuke-chan smiled serenely, patting the confused kunoichi on the back. There. Here, have a drink. It always makes things easier for people. Yeah. I just bet it loosens them up. Hana snarked. Well, it is one way out of the tight spots. Naruto grinned. Yes, sometimes you are just between the tight and the hard place. Sasuke nodded. Hana just groaned. So? Kisame leaned on the wall, the black cloak folded over his shoulder because of the heat. There is no mistake. Itachi closed his eyes, feeling the mental drain ebbing away slowly. It was a cruel joke, that Sharingan of his. The moment he achieved Mangekyo he knew it would slowly destroy his sight, but he thought it would only happen when the Mangekyo was used. He was delighted to see his Sharingan, as a whole, improved. The illusions especially, before, it was just a simplistic bit of genjutsu, but now it was a whole another realm of possibility. The possibility he paid for daily, and would until he was blind. You didn't need to use that on the guy, you know? The Kiri Nuke Nin kicked the whimpering, shaking man for emphasis. He's just a piece of shit, Itachi. But he was terrified. The Uchiha said calmly. It is better that way. You're in a real hurry, huh? The shark-faced man sighed. You keep on pushing yourself like that and you'll lose it all, you know. Itachi said nothing, instead just reaching for his Pocky supply. Yeah. We're doing it your way, as you wish. Kisame shrugged. You're the boss, after all. Though I don't get your fascination with that broad. Even if she escaped that purge of yours, what's the point? Madara is too old. Itachi leaned back, closing his eyes. He kept an eye on all Uchiha. And yet, of her he knew nothing. Kisame frowned, tapping the hilt of Samehada idly. A renegade? More. The Sharingan master bit into another Pocky stick almost viciously. That thing this man saw, there is no mistaking it. It was the Sharingan. He was terrified of it. Well, Sharingan or not, I don't know. Kisame shrugged. But Samehada went a little crazy here. So, whoever that demon guy was, he was the real deal. The Kiri Nuke Nin looked at his companion. Though all bijou are accounted for, right? We shall see. Itachi's monotone didn't change, but there was a brief hitch that Kisame learned to recognize over the years of their partnership. Seems like you're actually excited, Itachi. The shark man chuckled. I don't blame you. It might be fun. The Uchiha renegade remained silent, though I have to admit, whoever it was. Kisame kicked a nearby, blackened stone. They had a hell of a lot of power. The walls still all but vibrate with that shit. He tapped the wall, or rather the remains of one he was leaning on. Well, whatever's left of it, anyway. Shame. I've been here back in the day. They had a really nice castle. Itachi peered over the ruin, his Sharingan spinning lazily, burning every bit of the burned-out husk of the Sunflower Castle into memory. Really? He said with a faint smile. I think it looks better now. Kisame looked at his companion oddly, before shaking his head. Itachi was weird like that some days, but also interesting. To be honest, it was the main reason Kisame, a fresh Nuke Nin, agreed to take the job given to him by a creepy, monotone-speaking kid with a 1,000-yard stare, way back then. Besides, how many times in his life did he have a chance to go against an organization older than his village and filled to the brim with S-class maniacs like himself? And getting paid a downright absurd amount of money for it as well? Why is that undead Gramps of yours so set on finding her? Ally obstacle? Both. Neither. Itachi shrugged faintly. She is a wrench in his plan either way. Oh yeah, that grand, mysterious and fairly stupid plan. Kisame rolled his eyes. You know, for an over a century-old undead fuck he's more or less a moron. Itachi smiled faintly, saying nothing. So, any idea where they went, Coral? Itachi stood up. That man certainly seemed to think so. Coral, man, that's far, but given the time they are already there. Kisame frowned, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. We might miss them even if we hurry. We won't. Itachi turned on his heel, walking away, Kisame following. It is all taken care of. The shaking man opened his mouth to scream, only to stiffen, blood pouring from his lips and ears, before convulsing and becoming still for the last time. The two cloaked men melted into the night seamlessly, vanishing. The smoke coiled like a living being, not quite separate, but also not entirely one with the heavy atmosphere. It was a dive, or at least it seemed like that at first glance. Solid wooden tables, too heavy to lift, by civilians anyway, sparse lighting save for the few tables, patrons who didn't take kindly to sitting by them, or even near them. Hannah knew those well by now considering last 3 days had been spent cruising a variety of dens like this, some better, some worse, some actually decent as far as she was concerned. 50. 10. I hear that, and raise you bastards double that. The same. There were no chips here, like in one of those posh casinos they hit the first day. When Naruto told her he wanted private games for hard cash, she envisioned doing a round or two of the casinos, and then buying in, or being invited into some posh, highbrow game. Instead the blonde and the Uchiha made a whole show out of several rather spectacular wins, culminating with almost being thrown out of one of the most expensive resorts holding the casino frequented by people who probably saw more money in a day than she made in a year. Then they toned down the clothes, grabbed the pipes and the cash Naruto won and hit the downtown. Hit would be appropriate. Hannah winced internally, remembering the first dive they visited. The patrons were quiet, hard-eyed men and women who didn't take too kindly to a spoiled brat hitting them for hard cash, and decided to hit back. The bodies left in the gutter just beside the tavern were alive. Or so she hoped. Sasuke made quite a show of breaking every bone in any limb that so much as moved in their direction wrong. Naruto giggled, ostensibly drunk out of his mind, and Hannah tried not to bat an eye at the excessive and quite gleeful brutality. She was a shinobi, yes, but she was a professional. Violence didn't disturb her, but the giggly glee Sasuke displayed doing it most certainly did. Mostly because she had no idea how much of it was faked and how much was Sasuke. She still didn't. It was even harder now after all that, in fact. Naruto could play the loud, devil-may-care noble looking for thrills well. Truthfully, Hannah didn't know if he needed to play that up at all considering his attitude. Sasuke, on the other hand, worried her. Given the disturbing but undeniably proud attitude the Uchiha displayed, could she be actually counted on to rein her arrogance in? Hannah leaned back, hiding a small smile behind the saucer of sake as she saw Sasuke's hand sliding down Naruto's back as she leaned, playing with the strands of golden hair. There was no worry of that now. The freak was like some goddamn chameleon, at the same time blending into the background consisting of those women in a tad too loud makeup and cheap, garish dresses showing far too much skin, while standing out just enough to act as an excellent smokescreen, drawing the stares and provoking the idiots into proving they were man enough. The Inuzuka restrained herself from smoothing out the dress. She had to bring the skimpy cloth a little lower, to no avail. The slit on the thigh made it flat out impossible. Hell, the daring dress was bad enough without taking its tightness into account. She shifted a little, only to pause as she noticed several men in nearby tables following her chest with obvious interest. I'll kill those perverts. She honestly didn't know if she was thinking about the freak duo, or about the trash filling the bar. 150. Naruto's voice was bored, as he casually slugged another wad of cash down. The same and another 100 for a good measure. The man in front of the Jinchuriki smiled, leaning back and putting out the cigar he had been smoking, only to calmly draw another. Hannah grimaced. The odd, bluish smoke was almost choking her, while it was far unpleasant, having a strangely spicy, almost herbal scent. It was incredibly strong and played havoc with her sense of smell something fierce. And the slim blonde didn't seem to stop smoking them, one after another, seemingly endlessly. A dusky hand sneaked around the blonde's neck, a woman in a tight cheongsam sliding slightly up from her usual lazy position on the blonde gambler, her fingers touching the tip of the cigar, which lit up in the dinky room. The blonde, his off-gray, high-collared jacket open, displaying something silvery under it, smiled, taking a long drag with obvious relish. "A hot woman, gentlemen. What can I say?" he said, voice smooth, with that odd, washed-out accent that could be fire country or snow, for all she knew. Precise and measured but impossible to get a fix on. Though it was nice, she decided, very smooth and pleasant. The dusky-skinned beauty chuckled, her golden eyes almost glowing in the dim light. "You're playing with fire," she purred, leaning back just enough to grind her body into his slowly. "That's the only way to play," the sandy blonde said pleasantly, straightening his cards. "If I didn't want to ride the lightning, I'd never have picked you." The golden-eyed woman chuckled, biting the blonde's ear gently. Hannah blinked at the tiny droplet of blood that vanished as fast as it appeared thanks to the violet-haired woman's dexterous tongue. The blonde was unfazed, only quirking an eyebrow. "Play nice, Setsuna," he said softly. "Gentlemen." The two other gamblers looked at the table, before the younger of them, a tall, gangly man in his late 20s, slammed the cards down. "What's the fucking point?" he muttered bitterly. "It's gonna be the same either way with you bastards." He showed himself out of the table. "I'm out." The older man, whose creased face saw at least 60 years, and Hannah would bet most of them spent in combat considering how he carried himself, puffed on his pipe thoughtfully before sighing. "While I don't feel as strongly as our young friend there did, I must admit it is getting slightly too costly for me." He folded the cards neatly, before putting them on the table calmly. "Also, however angry, the young man does have a point." The old ninja sighed, standing up with a warrior's grace, despite his obvious age. "You have to excuse this old man, but I don't want to be the latest in a long line of dirt-poor losers crumbling while our two youthful pillars keep on standing. Farewell, gentlemen." He bowed to the table before grabbing a cane and walking away among the mutters. Hannah hid her wince by rising her saucer and taking a tiny sip. The old man hit it dead on. The game, if it could be called that, started early, mostly as a distraction after their visit to one of the seedier, Yakran casinos by the docks. Naruto's purse was overflowing, Sasuke was complaining about blood under her nails, and Hannah tried to restrain an urge to grab a bottle and forget the fact they left the establishment short 2 dealers, who were crooked, and the manager shorter his head, after Sasuke, God's knowing how, brought the fact the man was rigging all games to the local oyabun, which she apparently managed to find in 10 minutes, complete with getting a personal audience. Hannah preferred not to think about whys and hows especially. Still, if there was one good thing coming out of the whole mess, aside from a nice pot taken by Naruto regardless of the rigged game, the perv was good, damn him, it was the fact no one so much as dared to question their presence downtown anymore. Once again it was proven that the rumor was the fastest thing on earth, bar none. Especially if it was less of a rumor, and more like a warning from a very pissed-off Yakuza godfather. The thank you banquet, even if an unofficial one, was a long, drawn-out affair showing off a level of hospitality a daimyo would envy. Hannah pretended not to see the way Sasuke, shameless as always, had the old oyabun eating out of the palm of her hand. If they stayed there a wee bit longer the old man would probably adopt her straight out, he was so charmed. Though the fact Naruto gave him tips on running gambling business might have something to do with it all. Hannah thought, feeling the impending headache. Still, the little distraction grew into a serious game quite unexpectedly. Naruto, as per his modus operandi, cleaned out the local sharks in 30 minutes flat. But then the irresistible force, it seemed, met the unmovable object. Said unmovable object sat now calmly by the table, smoking the strange, blue-smoked cigars and proving he not only had very deep pockets, managing to meet and raise every bid Naruto felt like making, but also the disturbing ability to meet the blonde halfway. It was unreal, to be honest. Neither had one so far, not decisively anyway. One hand went that way, the other another. The very moment they decided to go deep and bid more, it always ended halfway. Sometimes Naruto won, sometimes the other blonde did, but after Hannah did some careful counting she realized that the overall balance was completely, ideally zero. After over 5 hours of play. Not to mention, the long hours made sure Sasuke was bored. Then the violet-haired Kunoichi saw fit to lean on her blonde companion, massaging his shoulders lazily. Sasuke, to Hannah's horror, found a new source of amusement. Worse. Sasuke, the goddamn deviant, saw a challenge. It took all Hannah had not to whimper as Sasuke-chan licked her lips, leaning onto Naruto. Only that dress, that damnable dress, had a decency to slide a bit. A bit but enough. considering the Neo girl didn't wear a bra. And then the dusky-skinned woman's eyebrows rose up, eyes glinting with mirth. That was 3 hours ago. Since then Hannah grew basically desensitized. Because between the secretive smiles, tiny rubs, licks, disheveled dresses and shared suggestive comments, sex would be a formality given the amount of raw lust and innuendo floating around that table. Not to mention the pheromones her nose could smell just fine, given the sheer amount of it all in the air. She was frankly impressed that neither of them decided to fuck it all and go straight into screwing their partners senseless, given what the two women in question were doing. The Inuzuka heiress fervently thanked every god, demon and spirit in existence for Sasuke's freaky sense of pride, otherwise that deviant just might drag her into it as well. Which was, to her utter embarrassment, both fucking scary and damn exhilarating to think about at the same time. Considering some of the crowd watching by thinned, the provocatively dressed women and patrons vanishing in the rooms upstairs as the atmosphere thickened, she wasn't the only one feeling it. Hannah shivered slightly, trying to look like she didn't. There was a faint, yet lingering, essence. Something that made the warm molasses of pleasure envelop her senses, spilling that lazy, sensual rhythm down to her bones. She had no idea if it was the fact she didn't get any for months, or the fact the deviant didn't know the word restraint if it tied her. Hannah blinked, before groaning at the train of thought. I hate them. So. Fucking. Hate. Them. Call. This is going nowhere, ain't it? Naruto said thoughtfully, putting down the two pairs. Considering we went through everything starting with poker and ending at it again, I'm inclined to agree. The sandy-haired man smiled faintly, showing his slightly lower two pairs. We're on zero balance once again, by the way. The Jinchuriki quirked an eyebrow. Damn, but you're counting fast. He said with a chuckle. Counting money is something of a specialty of mine. The taller blonde smirked, while the woman on his lap guffawed, before breaking into a laughter. What? He blinked innocently. It's true. The violet-haired kunoichi just shook her head, chuckling and whispering something into the man's ear. Oh, really? The white-clad man said with obvious interest. That's some specialty. I know. The dusky-skinned kunoichi smirked. You really don't need to tell me. Naruto said calmly, putting out his own cigar. Well, considering you already know it, that's kind of obvious. Sasuke-chan said matter-of-factly. Naruto blinked, while Hannah just pinched the bridge of her nose. So, given we are 5 hours on it already. Naruto rubbed his chin. 50-50, that would be the most obvious solution, yeah. The other man nodded. Besides, even if we wanted to continue, he winced slightly as the woman on his lap bit him. Now that's some sharp thinking. Naruto said with a smirk. Pointy arguments, my friend. The other blonde rolled his eyes. Sheesh. The violet-haired woman snorted. Man, you two are lame. Considering you married me, who's lamer? The sandy blonde grinned at her. That was pity, idiot. The kunoichi poked the white-clad gambler's chest. Get it straight. Yes, yes, oh great Setsuna-sama. The man chuckled. I shall endeavor to remember. Of course you will. The dusky-skinned woman said sagely. This body is unforgettable, Hannah blinked owlishly. Somehow, this seems familiar. She thought, eyes wide. You're good. Naruto shook the sandy blonde man's hand. Been a while since anyone gave me a decent challenge. Likewise. The other man chuckled. I don't remember losing so many times in one game in my life. I have to admit, while I wouldn't want to repeat it, it was interesting. Yeah, reminder you two are mortal and all. Naruto nodded with a smirk. Something like that, yes. The white-clad man said with an odd smile. The two women, in turn, shared a look, raising their respective eyebrows, before sharing a decidedly wicked smirk and a nod that was halfway between a bow and some odd acknowledgement. The two blondes leaned forward, deftly splitting the pot between themselves only to pause as the crowd's murmurs rose, before cutting in half rapidly. I don't think so. The two players shared a look, before turning to the source. The gangly young man who stormed away from the table was standing in the middle of the bar, surrounded by a large number of similar young thugs. Each of them had hard, greedy eyes and swagger born out of cocksure belief in the knives and swords they carried. You think you two rich pieces of shit can play us for idiots and leave with our money? The man sneered. Your money. Naruto quirked an eyebrow. We won it fair and square. Don't take me for an idiot, you rich pansy. The young man spat on the ground. No one wins like that. No one. And the only time you two shits were losing was to each other, after you both waltz in the docks at the same time? How stupid do you think we are? Very, actually, if you think you can take anything that belongs to me. The voice was smooth, but cold. There was no killer intent in it, but its chilly quality was more than enough to act like a verbal whip, shutting some of the louder thugs up right away. The sandy-haired man was standing calmly, relaxed, not a muscle tense. His blue eyes were like frozen lakes, taking in every wannabe criminal with chilly detachment and dismissing them out of hand with dispassionate contempt one would show a bug. You piece of shit. The gangly man reddened. You think you can just come in here and insult me like that? The gangster drew his sword wildly. I'm gonna kill you. Jiro, don't be a fool. The gangly man turned to the corner, sneering at the old shinobi who was one of the players before, now sipping a drink calmly. Stay out of this, old man. He snapped, though there was some odd care in his words, despite the bluster. It is none of your business, they ain't local. I'm taking what's mine, that's all. I am not the one you need to worry about, brat. The gray-haired shinobi took a sip of sake. You think I am scared of two rich pansies, eh? Jiro laughed derisively. Man, you need to have your eyes checked, Gramps. The shinobi paused, cocking an eyebrow and Jiro stiffened, taking a cautious step back. The old man swirled his sake calmly, before draining the saucer and pouring himself another one. Walk away, Jiro. That in order, geezer. The man sneered. The older shinobi just sighed, shaking his head. Goodbye, Jiro. He said calmly. Fucking antique. The younger man muttered, before turning to the table, eyes narrowing. Now, you rich fuck, what were you saying? Short memory and retardation? The sandy-haired man said mockingly. You are really out of luck, aren't you? Your mother must be so sad. The young man paled, before rising his sword with a snarl, only to halt abruptly. You're boring. A loud gurgle was all that managed to escape Jiro's throat before his body and head came apart at the neck, falling in two separate directions. Setsuna stretched languidly, the blade of the Jien moving with the same serpentine, sensuous grace her body did. I don't like boring things. The kunoichi said blandly. That. One of the thugs swallowed, looking at the headless corpse. They killed Jiro. Those bastards. Screamed another. I say whatever was to be said, stopped mid-sentence, as the almost 2-meter-tall man fell down, a crossbow bolt in his skull. The crowd fell silent once again, the eyes traveling towards the white-clad man, who was puffing on his cigar calmly, two crossbows in his hands. Now I know what you're thinking. He said, his voice smooth. You are thinking, he just shot a bolt, he only has one other left. But that is still one more bolt you can't duck. One of you will be hit. Maybe it will be you, maybe it will be your neighbor, all depending on your luck. The sandy-haired man smiled pleasantly, though the faint undertone of menace was anything but. Now, the question you want to ask yourselves is, do I feel lucky? The eyes weren't cold anymore, but almost gleeful, and terrifyingly clear. For a moment, one could almost feel the tension rising steadily in the group of thugs as they gazed at the crossbow as if entranced. Well? The silky voice resounded in the suddenly deathly silent bar. Do you? The crowd wavered. A moment later, all anyone could hear was a rushed steps and sounds of steel hitting the floor as the wannabe gangsters vacated the premises, leaving behind two corpses and a lot of third-rate weapons. The old shinobi in the corner shook his head. Youngsters these days. He murmured, taking a sip of sake. So excitable. It was ironic, but the two strongest bijou, out of those sealed into humans anyway, had the most combat-useless abilities of them all. Shikaku, the weakest, one-tail, pink elephant seeing stone-cold crazy tanuki could become a living desert and a giant sandbox rolled into one, down to the levitating sand. How exactly that worked, no one really knew, aside from 5 people, one of whom was alive currently and didn't feel like sharing, but work it did. Sanbai, for being a total, complete, utter moron could spam tsunamis, out of thin air, more or less, simply by liquefying the moisture in the surroundings, that made S-class ninjutsu of Kiri look like puddles, while Yanbi's earth manipulation abilities made Doton masters of IWA cry. Most of those abilities, however reduced and transferred to their hosts, either directly or not. For Gaara, the soon as Jinchuriki it was his infamous ultimate defense, for Yanbi's host it was the downright absurd hardiness of body and bones. One would think that for the two strongest bijou, one by virtue of actually liking her host and working with her instead of sincerely wishing to eat her, the other simply because it was 9 tails and was just that fucking absurdly powerful period, that extras should be immense, deadly and overpowered on a level that made Mangekyo Sharingan look tame. One would be very wrong. Uzumaki Naruto, the Jinchuriki of Kyubi no Kitsune, or Yoko, or Yukai, depending on who said, what they said and what they knew, the bijou that could cause tsunami with its tails, rip earth asunder with a flick its paws and set entire forests on fire with one swipe of its claws had precisely one ability from his unwilling tenant. Well, not counting the animalistically keener senses, stamina and other minor additions that were, more or less, shared by all Jinchuriki and had more to do with the side effects of sealing or mingling chakra than anything else. He couldn't, despite being apparently of Kitsune stock, set things on fire with his eyes. He couldn't manipulate elements in ways that defied descriptions or conventional ninjutsu knowledge. He couldn't cast grand illusions so accurate everybody and their dog thought they were real either. Instead, the Jinchuriki of the greatest of bijou could shape-shift. Both shape and, to his unending frustration courtesy of certain Uchiha, gender. And it was limited shape-shifting, too, given he couldn't turn into animals or inanimate objects. Of course, as Naruto discovered, the supposedly harmless ability was complete on a level that bordered on not just improbable, but outright impossible. To put it plainly, Naruto could be anyone, of any age, race or gender. Missing those golden years of youth, lollipops and milk teeth? No problem, bam, you're 6 years old again. Feeling like hitting the town, and spending some time with the ladies of the night? Why, be my guest. 25 old enough? Want some stubble, maybe a different hair color, bigger muscles, or a scar or something? No problem. Feeling pretty? Say no more, from a blushing schoolgirl to a seductive femme fatale, with the MILF factor included as a bonus if you want it. He could do it all, be it all. The sky was no longer the limit. And given the fact even things like his scent, presence, movement and chakra signature changed, one could easily see why Sasuke called the ability completely broken with the blistering envy that led to the development of the walking headache that was Uchiha's gender is optional attitude. But then, as far as Naruto was concerned, Sasuke-chan was incredibly hot, so it made up for a lot. And the freakout factor was so fun to abuse, regardless how you went about it. Ni-Yujito had a similar problem. Nibi wasn't a particularly powerful creature as far as bijou went. She was fast, deadly and as dangerous as any other bijou, but far from the most powerful of the 9. However, as far as Jinchuriki went, Nibi's host was the most powerful among them, or second most powerful, to be exact, but then Naruto was very hush-hush and Kyubi was fucking lazy. It wasn't because her seal was better, it wasn't because of the superior training. It wasn't also because of the fact that the Sandaime Raikage, in a rare influx of common sense, decided to treat the girl with a village-destroying demon in her stomach like a prized weapon should be, making sure Yujito grew up to be a surprisingly well-adjusted, if a workaholic member of the community. Well, as far as a person who killed people for living could be. No. It harkened back to the day when Yujito was a well-provided-for but lonely child of 6 and was told of her role by the Sandaime. Yujito, from the day she could walk, was raised to be a shinobi. A calm, calculating, fairly dispassionate saboteur, bodyguard and assassin. Training areas were her playgrounds, the records of battles her fairy tales and weapons her toys, while Sun Tzu was among her recreational reading. Above that, however, Yujito was, despite all the training and attention given to her by the instructors, a lonely 6-year-old girl. It was a very stupefied Nikomata who, coming into the direct mental contact with the host, instead of fear or desire for power, met a calm, wide-eyed girl who simply looked on with admiration and curiosity. Yujito, it should be added, never had a pet. Such silly things were distractions from the rather strict but reasonable regime designed to create a perfect shinobi. But like almost every girl, she had an affinity for all things soft and fluffy. At least she thought the Nikomata was soft, fluffy and very peatable. Nibi actually was far from soft and fluffy, but she was a cat, and rather vain by definition. And her fur was rather fabulous, if she could say so herself. It was the day that would live in infamy for decades to come. The day when the host, who was supposed to use and abuse the power, and the demon, who was supposed to snarl, threaten to eat and be a general nuisance before it ended the host's life prematurely due to the chakra poisoning, bonded. Nibi never had kittens, she was a living manifestation of chakra, a souped-up Nikomata so to speak, and as such she didn't treat Yujito as one. Yujito never had a pet or family given she was an orphan, but it was easy to fall in the companionship with the spirit. Nibby wasn't a distraction, she wouldn't be a spy from the enemy village, or an assassin or a fake friend sent to spy on her. Nibby would never leave, never betray, they lived and died together. Hell, the friendly Nibby was fully within the interest of Kyumo and she was supposed to use every asset she had for the sake of the village, right? Where was the bad side to that? On her side, Nibby found Yujito amusing and almost adorable. Besides, she was bored and cats need love too. Petting and fur rubbing was an entirely new but thoroughly pleasurable experience she wanted more of. At first unnoticeable, the effect started to be visible as Yujito grew older. It soon became apparent that Kyumo's Jinchuriki could draw the power without risking going berserk, or that the constant chakra backlash that made Jinchuriki live short, violent lives due to the side effects didn't seem to affect the host in the slightest. If anything, Yujito was in perfect health even after healing serious injuries. The contamination of chakra didn't harm her, the rapid deterioration most Jinchuriki hit later in their lives due to the poisonous nature of the violent chakra wasn't present. In fact, as Jinchuriki went, Yujito was a perfect specimen. The Kyumo Sealmasters patted each other on the back, boasting of their talents and knowledge, coated in their puffed-up self-importance. The only person not happy about it was the Raikage, who only gave Yujito an unreadable look, his face impassive. Still, for being the second strongest of the Jinchuriki capable of drawing amounts of power with sheer volume left ninja around her gibbering Rex, for a host to a bijou who could apparently command fiery blazes of hell and make hordes of undead do her bidding, Yujito's flame aura could barely equal a B-rank Katan Jutsu if one squinted. Her second and far greater talent was, like Naruto's, completely useless for combat. But where Naruto could shape-shift depending on the situation, day of the week, or pure whim, Yujito had something vastly different in her kitten-themed bag of tricks. Krarag. The slobbering, smelly corpse rocked back and forth, trying to stand Kroawea. Yujito could talk to dead people. Crrggg. The recently risen corpse crowed again, almost sheepishly. The blonde Jinchuriki's eyebrow twitched. The ability, while creepy, didn't seem like all that useless at a first glance. Sure, she wouldn't be rising an army of undead creatures to do her bidding, nor would she raise some legendary dead shinobi to aid her in combat anytime soon. But those who said dead men told no tales never met ni Yujito. Crow, Guh. The corpse slobbered, before attempting to blink. However, as Yujito found out early on, allowing the body to be animated didn't solve the problems that ended its life. So a man who had his spine broken wouldn't walk, for example. Yujito's eyebrow twitched again. And someone whose innards, including his throat and lungs, were partially melted using some kind of highly corrosive acid wouldn't speak clearly either. Karararergu. The corpse groaned helplessly. I hate overly thorough ninja. The blonde growled, the spikes of rage coupled with mental and physical exhaustion of the past week cracking the usually calm and professional facade. Krughaga. The zombie craned its neck, looking at its distressed mistress. The blonde's teeth gritted loudly, an angry, spiteful hiss escaping her throat. The remains of the fortified walls, now nothing more than burned-out shells of its former glory, fell apart ripped by the claws. Shut up! The woman growled. Krughuha. The air in the undead's halfway melted lungs escaped with a hiss, the corpse falling down as dead as a doornail again. Yujito took a deep, drawn-out breath, using the familiar relaxation techniques taught to her by the Reiko monks so long ago. The outburst of destructive anger would cost her too much energy, and while Nibby's power would keep her going, her mind needed rest. Tired shinobi made mistakes. Mistakes? She had to resist an urge to laugh bitterly. This stopped being a mistake and turned into a goddamn catastrophe. The Nikomata touched her host's mind gently, the familiar feeling of soft warmth enveloping Yujito from the inside out. Thank you. The Jinchuriki closed her eyes, basking in the bijou's presence with an almost guilty feeling of luxury. But then, there was no one to chide her for it now, was there? Not anymore. The blonde reached into the inner pocket of a ragged coat she had stolen off a Rurouni, her own clothes discarded long ago because they were both too distinctive and she would bet they contained a dozen different tracking seals. Her fingers closed on the jagged slab of metal, caressing the Kyumogakure symbol. This one had the seals too, but she personally destroyed each of those simply by sending some supercharged chakra through them, though it left the metal rather mangled. Nothing but trash now. Her lips quirked up in a mirthless smile, before turning into a grim line. A strong squeeze later, the shards of metal were falling down to the ground. Her weapons, her clothes, and now, her hitayate. Her whole life was like those shards now. Past, present and future. In pieces and beyond recovery. Future. You have no future, girl. That's it. You're done. She snarked, the Nikomata cooing softly at her partner's distress. I am sorry, my lovely. Forgive me. We are not alone, at least. The irises slitted, burning with gold. And together, those bastards who ruined my life, those bastards, we will make them pay. Ah! Naruto leaned back, a blissful expression on his face even as he put down the bowl. Good Benton, this is the greatest of your blessings. Sasuke-chan chuckled, taking a bite from her cotton candy. Hana, her own cotton candy in hand, managed not to bat an eye at the fact the deviant managed to make it look both seductive and cute. Practice makes perfect. She thought with a smirk, calmly licking her own snack before pausing. Two pairs of eyes, Sasuke's dark and Naruto's blue ones, were smiling. She couldn't describe it any other way. They weren't looking in the same direction, even near her, but there was the same touch of amusement in them, almost like one was some kind of weird kagebunshin of the other. Though for the life of her she couldn't say which was whose. Those eyes are so alike. She thought absently, an odd lightheaded feeling flooding her. They were just there. In the middle of the festival crowd, Naruto lazy from the countless bowls of ramen and all but laying on the table, Sasuke standing idly, leaning as she licked the cotton candy, words flowing in a banter that meant nothing and everything, with that strange feeling there was some hidden joke under all that innuendo and cheap puns. They were there. Just there. In festive yukatas, touched with that smidgen of overkill, standing in the middle of the gaudily dressed festival crowd, cotton candy and jokes, and those cheap catch-the-fish games and they stood out regardless. Just by being there. Rich and grand, almost to the point of absurd in their silks and over-the-top attitudes, as if they took a step out of a fairy tale, while at the same time more real than anything else around them, though she'd never know why. Sasuke turned to her. Is something the matter? Under the raised eyebrow and innocent tone, the onyx eyes were laughing. I just want to know what the joke is. Everything. Hana blinked, looking at the blonde who was sipping his sake. What? The Uchiha laughed, a strange, smooth giggle that managed to sound dignified and carefree at the same time. Once upon a time, there was a great ninja. Sasuke licked her cotton candy languidly. It was in a time where there were no villages and clans held the reins of power in the world of shadows, when few not of the bloodline had a chance to become a ninja. Yet this man, a true prodigy of great talent, did. He fought in many battles, he mastered ancient techniques and became both feared and respected among his peers. Yet he vied not for the power, riches, or glory like his comrades did. He was devoted to his art and aimed to truly understand it. Because of that he decided to learn the utmost secrets of it. The Uchiha leaned back, sitting on the blonde's lap and nestling herself comfortably while Naruto just snorted, giving her a bit of sake. The girl refused a cup, instead calmly sipping it from his saucer like an overgrown cat. He soon realized that the lore was vast and decided that simply learning it all wouldn't be possible for a man in one lifetime. Therefore he meditated on the problem until he had found a solution. I shall learn the strongest, the most powerful and most sublime of them, for is it not the essence of the ninja? Deciding on the course of action he followed it with zeal. Scouring the land for the most powerful of arts he found monks of the north, who were rumored to break the masters of arms with their bare hands, and learned their style. His talent was great, his dedication even greater. Soon, the monks called him their master and begged him to stay and take his rightful place. The man declined, for his journey was far from over. Next he searched the shinobi world for the most perfect of ninjutsu. He encountered the clans of bloodline gifts, the monsters and spirits of power and men akin to gods who made the heavens tremble, and he learned their secrets until he was even stronger than them. His legend grew so much every noble wanted his services and every ninja clan offered him daughters, riches, and position, as many as he wanted, and as much as he wanted, just so he would stay with them. Yet he refused. Sasuke's voice was smooth, warm and entrancing, compelling, spilling over Hana like honey. For he cared not for riches, honor or glory of the clans, as those he soon realized were just trappings of luxury. He cared not for morality and justice of the lords, for it was hollow and self-absorbed. Determined more than ever, he moved on in his quest to find the last part of the puzzle. He scoured the ancient halls, walked through battlefields, visited monasteries, bargained with demons and bartered with spirits in his search for understanding, meeting naught but despair. For while taijutsu could be judged by grace and efficiency, ninjutsu by power and effect, How was one to judge an illusion? The wheels of Sharingan spun for a moment, as Sasuke smiled in that odd, almost inhumanly serene yet mischievous way she was occasionally prone to, which was, to Hana's amazement, creepier than all of her innuendo combined. Years passed and the despair set its claws deep into his heart at the fruitlessness of his quest. No monk could aid him, no onmyoji advise him, no ninja teach him, and no spirit whisper the secret sufficient enough to give him the prize he looked for. Dismayed, exhausted, and bitter, he came to a city of vice, seeking to drown his sorrow in any way he could, seeking even a briefest of respites. And there he met a courtesan named Yuya. She was an oiran, a woman of low station sold by her parents into the trade as a young girl and taught beauty and pleasure by shrewd-eyed matrons of her tea house. While no exquisite beauty, she was good at her job, and her patrons felt naught but bliss in her arms, which she drew a measure of pride from. It was a small pride most would scoff at, but it was hers and she cherished it. Therefore when the ninja came to her, bitter and drunk with both wine and disappointment, she took his coins and led him to her bed. But the ninja was inconsolable, still bemoaning his failure, only despair lingering in his heart. The courtesan's pride was small but strong. The ninja didn't want to share his burden, but the oiran was determined and crafty. Sasuke shrugged with a teasing grin, allowing the breasts to move a bit, and there was no doubt what kind of crafty she meant. When the ninja finally shared his great grief with her, the courtesan looked at him and laughed loudly. Enraged, shamed and bitter, the ninja threatened to take her life for mocking him. The courtesan just smiled and said, "If you do so, my lord, you will never learn the secret of the greatest illusion of all." The ninja was confused. What could a whore, of all people, know of ninja arts? But then he was tired and looked for years. So he relented and demanded the secret of her, lest he take her head and life with it. The oiran smiled serenely and told him she would share the secret, but on one condition. For the 3 days, he was to follow her wishes without question or hesitation. The ninja agreed. "If you have enemies, I will cut them down. If you have oppressors, I shall dispose of them. If you need treasures or gems of knowledge, I can find them for you without fail," he said. The oiran nodded, and told him to be there the next day. When the sun rose, the ninja was there with sword on his back and shuriken in his hand. The courtesan led him to a garden by the tea house. Confused, the ninja said nothing when she sat and bade him to look at the birds with her until afternoon. The ninja did as asked. As the noon passed, she asked him to join her in a meal, and ninja complied, passing the time with song, wine and music. The very next day, when he came again, ready to do her bidding, weapons in hand, she asked him to follow her into the city. Thinking she needed a bodyguard, he walked behind her diligently while the courtesan spent the whole day buying the finest jade combs and picking the most beautiful kimono. The ninja followed her like a shadow as she went about her day until they came back to the tea house, where she bade him to eat with her once again. When the third sunrise came, she bade him to join her in a song. The ninja was most distressed, he did not know how to sing. The courtesan laughed and bade him to sing regardless. His word was his honor, and as such he did as ordered. When the sun rose the next day, the ninja demanded the secret, at which courtesan said nothing. Enraged, he decided to draw his sword, but despite the shame he experienced, he felt reluctant to do so. He tried to unleash one of his countless mighty ninjutsu at the smiling woman, but the technique seemed to fade before they were even cast. Helplessly torn between shame, despair and reluctance, the ninja stood before the kneeling woman. Sasuke ripped a tiny bit of cotton candy and leaned back, sharing some with Naruto with a strange smirk. Yuya smiled knowingly to the ninja. "This, my lord, is the greatest, the most sublime illusion of them all, and its secret," she said softly. And the ninja was enlightened. Sasuke slid off Naruto's lap in a sinuous move, reaching for the next stick wrapped in cotton candy idly, while Naruto got up, tapping his hand on the table, before bowing and turning away. Hana blinked, falling into step, before halting at a strange, choked sound behind her. The ramen girl was staring, in sheer disbelief, as her table was slowly filling with gold, the whirling coin that Naruto left dancing on the table seemingly multiplying until there was a small fortune, while the cotton candy man stood by his stall, a blank smile on his face, giving away the snack to people without collecting pay. The older kunoichi's eyes widened, as she looked at Sasuke, who smiled serenely, licking her snack. "You can't just..." Hana murmured carefully as she stepped closer than most would think appropriate. "He gazed upon me, that was his pay." The younger kunoichi said calmly. "And what a pay it was." Naruto murmured with a chuckle, a large golden coin dancing on his knuckles with abandon. The Inuzuka woman looked at the duo, following them as they glided slowly through the crowd without paying attention. The coin danced, sometimes ending up on a table as a snack was bought here or there and mysteriously appearing in Sasuke's hand, then reappearing on Naruto's knuckles but leaving several of its sisters behind. Absently, Hana nibbled on the cotton candy before slowly, deliberately taking a large bite and letting the overly sweet treat melt on her tongue. Her sharp senses drew in the combined spicy scent, interwoven with whiffs of salt water, musk and something deep and elusively sweet as it combined with the scents of various snacks and treats from the stalls they passed. Combining, but never too much. Always standing out but blending for a few moments when something was taken, eaten or bought, before overwhelming that new scent again until it was just a bit of background flavor, only enhancing what was there before. Standing out, always standing out. As arrogant as the both of them. She thought with wry amusement. What are you people? She murmured, almost too softly to carry over the noise of the festival. Not softly enough not to be heard, apparently, as Naruto and Sasuke stopped, turning to her. Every fairy tale needs a happy ending, at the happy ever after, where the hero and the heroine get together, right? The blonde grinned. Or it isn't much of one. Hana looked at the laughing Jinchuriki in confusion. Sasuke smiled, leaning forward to take a bit of Hana's cotton candy, sharing half of the strand with Naruto absently. The Uchiha heiress licked her fingers off the sweet residue cheerfully, uncaring of the scandalized murmurs of the cultured women and disapproving matrons. Sasuke quirked an eyebrow at them, her stare mocking and challenging, and the women turned away hastily, the soft murmurs cut, leaving nothing but haughty stares filled with disapproval and envy. Sasuke laughed, causing the women around her to scramble nervously away, like children caught with their hands in a cookie jar. Isn't it obvious? Sasuke winked at Hana, licking off the last strand of the sweet treat off her fingers with obvious relish. We are simply Yuya's children. Laughing softly, the kunoichi turned, sashaying away, arm in arm with Naruto. Hana stood there for a long moment, a thoughtful look on her face before following, taking bites of her cotton candy absently, the crowd closing behind her until she too was gone. The fireworks overhead exploded overhead, the reflection reddish hue catching the lazily spinning wheels of Sharingan among a small patch of black. Then, like the fireworks, they were gone again as the sky cleared. Ha! Sasuke-chan sighed, leaning to the edge of the roof. And there they go, damn. Naruto frowned, putting the bottle he had been drinking from down so hard it almost cracked on the tiles. I didn't want to believe it, but, those bastards, what are they doing here? Now that is an interesting question. The kunoichi sat next to the blonde, frowning thoughtfully as they peered down at the crowd. They shouldn't be here. Not even near, not now. Tell me something I don't know. The blonde said sourly. Itachi and Kisame, to boot, shit, they aren't even bothering to hide, or downplay their presence. Sasuke murmured thoughtfully. It might seem strange to think of two cloaked individuals, especially Kisame, hiding, but Itachi never wanted to raise unneeded attention, so there was a small bit of genjutsu to encourage people not to pay attention to the two Akatsuki members courtesy of the renegade Uchiha. Usually, at least, hide. Naruto snorted. Have you felt that? That blasted shark, he doesn't even bother with holding the Samahata back at all. He all but fucking announces their presence. Announce, You might be onto something. The Uchiha said with a frown. Naruto pondered Sasuke's words for a moment, before looking at his companion. They are playing bait. He said with a sigh. Damn it. I'd really like to call it a coincidence, but... Sasuke smirked. Yeah. Naruto grumbled. So I am an optimist, sue me. They aren't looking for us especially, but... The Uchiha shrugged. The vampire princess and the demon. The blonde groused. Damn. I knew it was a bad idea. Oh come on. Sasuke rolled her eyes. You had fun and you know it. You've been just itching to do that since we've stolen the Raikage Tower. Well, there is that. The Jinchuriki chuckled. Though. I think they are here for you more than for me, if anything. The perils of being so drop-dead sexy and desirable, I guess. Sasuke sighed theatrically. They can't help but crave my most gorgeous, unrivaled presence in their dreary and empty lives, oh ho 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 ho. She covered her mouth with one of the silver fans. Didn't you get so lucky to be allowed in the presence of such sublime beauty and perfection on the constant basis? I'll set getting lucky for later. Naruto said, rolling his eyes. We have two annoyances to take care of now. No truer words. Sasuke chuckled, turning on her heel, before pausing. You do know I'll be holding you to that, right? Ha! Naruto blinked. What are you? His eyes widened a fraction. Sasuke smirked, vanishing in a swirl of shunshin, a card floating down gently into Naruto's palm. Point for me, dead last. Again. He read aloud, eyebrow twitching. Oh, for the love of. That bitch has fucking business cards for that now? We can't engage them in the open. The steps were calm, even and measured, the cloak of a subtle genjutsu encouraging the eyes to slide away just enough. That goes without saying. Sasuke idly slid her way along the stand's silk, capturing a white robe with no one being the wiser. I would prefer not to engage with force at all, if possible. Itachi, yes. Kisama, no. Naruto idly juggled two separate links of his chain, his eyes sliding over the shops and stands constantly, not quite looking, but not quite dismissing as well. Separation? We need a proper battleground for that. The Uchiha pondered the white silk in her hands before throwing it to Naruto, the garment vanishing before it even touched him. Boo! Nice. You've gotten faster. Absorb set, maximum. The Jinchuriki said absently, sliding his palm over an armor smith's stand, leaving it 2 gauntlets lighter and a small pile of coins richer. About the only good side to that thing, really. Sasuke blinked, looking at her partner. You actually incorporated that? She asked incredulously. I thought. It is not a full box. The armor plates vanished from his hands as he stopped by another smith, peering over the selection. Only a part. Still, that tech is dangerous. The kunoichi pointed out. Only in interference. I can handle it. Last time you said that I had to deal with your comatose ass for 2 weeks. Sasuke frowned. Don't do it again. Is that worry I hear in your voice, princess? Naruto said mockingly. And if it is? The raven-tressed beauty quirked an eyebrow. Don't worry, I have it all in hand. As I said, it is just a partial seal, nothing to worry about. He frowned, tapping one armor thoughtfully, before throwing it away, revealing a considerably bulkier matte black breastplate underneath. Oh. A skirmisher. Ugly. Sasuke sniffed. Precisely. Naruto grinned, the armor vanishing under his hands with a soft hiss. Will go well with the cloak. The Uchiha frowned, looking at the empty armor stand for a moment. Just what are you planning? She asked suspiciously. Shark cutlets? The Jinchuriki said innocently. Without the arsenal and with your limitation right now? She snorted. He'll cut you apart, unless you go full out. Which I can't do, of course, given the self-imposed limitations and the real ones, Naruto grinned. Sasuke grimaced. Do be so kind and do not use a self-imposed rule wording. She shuddered. The flashbacks of Guy are traumatizing. It is true, though. The blonde chuckled. We can't overplay our hand, or it all goes bust and our vacation would be terminated. It is an option, though. The kunoichi shrugged. It is not an option. The blonde cocked his head, eyeing several long, thin knives. Strange design, he murmured, before sliding his hand over them, prompting a hefty dozen to vanish, leaving a pile of coins in their wake. I don't know about you, but as things stand, going renegade isn't in my plans. You're just lazy. Sasuke smirked. Admit it. Ha! The blonde resumed the walk, leaving a befuddled and angry smith behind, anger that quickly turned into joyous disbelief as the man noticed the gold all but spilling over his stand. That ha of yours really leaves me worried. Sasuke said suspiciously, following her partner. As well it should. Naruto smiled pleasantly. Indeed, you know me well. Doesn't that just inspire my bottomless confidence? The woman's voice was fairly dripping with sarcasm. It is one of those ideas, isn't it? Doesn't change the fact it is a good one. The Jinchuriki said cheerfully. Your last, good idea ended with Enko the magical girl. Sasuke rolled her eyes. First off, she looked damn hot in that fuku. Naruto pointed out. Besides, you can't really tell me that Orochimaru being offed by a big fucking pink heart wasn't amusing. Well, it was a bit funny, I have to admit. Sasuke admitted, her lips twitching despite her wishes. The expression on his face was priceless. See? All kinds of benefits. The Jinchuriki said cheerfully. I mean, what can go wrong? Sasuke paused, staring at her friend in silence. What? What? Naruto snapped, bristling. I retract my previous statement. Now I am worried. The Kunoichi said flatly. Oh ye of little faith. The blonde rolled his eyes. Trust me, I know what I am doing. And that's exactly what worries me. Sasuke deadpanned. So, like it? Naruto leaned back, taking a sip of sake. This is. Sasuke blinked, walking slowly through the halfway ruined torii into a large structure of stone and wood, surprisingly well preserved despite its obvious age and occasional grass growing in between the rocks. It was large, though not tall, more like sprawling all over a hill to the side of a city. The long stretch of steps leading to the building was, amazingly, almost intact, reflecting the past majesty of the structure. It is big. What the Kunoichi frowned, inspecting the ruined, yet still majestic structure. It is a temple, Jirehai Jinja. Naruto took a large swing off his bottle. The temple of the honor guard. A very, very old place, this, Jirehai. Sasuke repeated softly, turning slowly as she walked forward. So those statues. She looked at one of many armed, life-sized statues of samurai standing in almost every point of the temple. Yeah. Naruto nodded, closing his eyes. A few centuries back, before any of the villages, shinobi were given a mission by the daimyo from the mainland, to kill the young heir to the family who held these lands. The mission was simple. The kid had only a few guards, nothing worth being too concerned over. The blonde chuckled. Of course, things changed when the ninja scent died. The samurai turned out to be fucking hardcore to the point that before they died, they all but exterminated the shinobi clan set with the job. Which turned out to be pointless on the ninja's side, since that heir was a decoy, and the real heir turned out to be a girl who was getting married to the daimyo's son and took over in a few months after the father of her husband suffered a heart attack. Sometime after she built this to honor their sacrifice. Nice. But Sasuke eyed one of the surprisingly well-preserved statues, using a quick jutsu to brush off the grime and dust, revealing the bone-white armors and swords. I can understand the color, but they are all the same. Ah, that's not one of the samurai. Naruto smiled. That's a part of their army. Sasuke quirked an eyebrow. Each of the survivors had been given titles, lands, and an army to command. Those who died, well, the princess said that if they couldn't command soldiers in life, she'd give them ones to command in death. Oh. Sasuke nodded slowly. Very fitting. Only halfway. Naruto drained his bottle, before balancing the empty clay container on his finger. An army for a dead man is like an empty bottle for a drunk. Useless. He slammed his arm down, intent on crushing the bottle until the swift hand caught his wrist gently, the other snagging the container deftly. But, you can always pour something into the empty container. The Uchiha said softly, before smiling. If it isn't broken, that is. The Jinchuriki looked at her oddly, before laughing loudly. Sasuke, Sasuke, Sasuke. He grabbed the raven-tressed beauty by the wrist, reversing the hold, and dragging her closer with a grin. You find the oddest signs of nobility in the worst places. I found enough in you. She said with a smirk. Didn't I? All too true. The blonde chuckled, a new bottle appearing in his hands. Come, let us drink, for the empty bottles and the army of the dead. I'd rather drink for the living. The brunette serenely, taking the bottle. But that will do, I suppose. For the living. Naruto blinked. You know, that might not be such a bad idea. A speculative glimmer lit up in the cerulean eyes, only to fade and return after momentary contemplation. Sasuke. Naruto said slowly. You are a fucking genius. I know, but thank you nonetheless. The Uchiha smiled. So? She inspected the temple critically, sipping her sake as she slowly walked through the courtyard, the cherry blossom trees overgrowing the formerly orderly garden with lush overabundance. This is our battleground, of a sort. The Jinchuriki shrugged. You don't need much of a stage for the weasel boy anyway. Not really. The Kunoichi murmured thoughtfully. Question is, how do you plan to handle Kisame as you are facing him? The blonde grimaced. The worst thing about that shark is that he can't be handled with brute force alone. Especially with Samahata. You said you can't overplay your hand as it is. She cocked her hand to the side. Which is kind of hard, given Sunflower. Actually, it is quite the opposite. Naruto said with a grin. We, however unknowingly, had sown enough of seeds, and our little side trip to Zukatsu gave me an idea. With a snap of fingers, the black clothes settled on Naruto's shoulders, the cowl, sliding over his head. Masking our presence is a lost cause. However, they came here looking for an ancient power. Why not let them find some? The raven-tressed beauty stared at her partner, before throwing her head back, the melodious laugh resounding through the ancient temple. Thank you, thank you. The blonde bowed with flourish, sweeping his cloak theatrically. You are the most wonderful audience. Sasuke clapped, still chuckling as a veritable shower of roses falling at the blonde's feet. Naruto grabbed one rose, before throwing it back to Sasuke-chan, who grabbed it deftly, blinking as the supposed genjutsu turned out to be quite real. Oh. Nice. She said, sniffing the flower as the rest of her flowery genjutsu unraveled, leaving bare ground. Sasuke tucked the flower in her hair with a small smile. Thank you. Naruto made an exaggerated courtly bow, using his cloak to sweep the ground in a grand fashion. Still, how do you want to handle Kisame without drawing deeply into Kyuubi's chakra? Facing him with brute force, even if he is a clone, is a stupid idea. At least now. The blonde paused, frowning. Okay, ever. That guy is a freak of nature, and doubly so with that sword of his. However, one finger rose pointedly. Remove the sword, or at least its ability, and suddenly the odds change quite a bit. Oh? Sasuke sat on one of the walls. And how do you figure? I spent far less time facing Kisame than you facing Itachi, for obvious reasons really, but I did fight him a few times. The blonde rubbed his chin. That guy is specific. He has a huge chakra capacity, but he is used to Samahata taking care of the drain for his jutsu. Part of his tactic is to shield from damage by intercepting his opponent's chakra. He is so used to it he relies on it without noticing he does. Which is actually a sound tactic, given he can't really be bereft of the sword. So, taking it away is out. But Naruto smirked. What if you take away its main advantage? That still leaves you with a big sword and a guy capable of flooding a small town in seconds. Sasuke said pleasantly. Yeah, well. There are ways around it. The blonde said with irritation. Aside from overpowering him, stuffing him with explosive notes, sicking your pet projects on him? Sasuke quirked an eyebrow. Well, yes, several. But given we lack the resources or conditioning, I don't see how you can take him without an army, Naruto. Well, ha fucking ha. Naruto rolled his eyes. At least you will be using just your genjutsu instead of going against the human flood. So stop being so smug. Why won't you simply use Kisi on him? Sasuke said curiously. I've seen what she is capable of when you take off the limiters. With his Suiton countered, you could take him. You know enough of his weaknesses to surprise him. Kisi is out of the question. Naruto shook his head. For one, I left her covering Hana and our Kage Bunshin if something happens. For two, if someone makes the connection, the whole charade goes down and we're back to square one. I didn't intend my vacation to turn into a let's train like crazy to stomp the Akatsuki fest, thank you very much. He glared. I won't even bother mentioning stuff like the root, IWA, our mutual snake friend and all that mess. And let's not even start on Sarutobi and his paranoid idiots club. Faye. We can take them. Sasuke huffed. Yeah, sure we can. Naruto rolled his eyes. And then our rose-colored vacation time goes bye-bye. Yeah. Fucking great idea there, bitch. No. We're sending them on a wild goose chase and party our way to bliss, watching as they run around like headless chickens. Hey, no complaints from me. Sasuke-chan shrugged. But that still leaves a question: how are you going to face Kisame without drawing on Kyuubi and with so few toys? An excellent question, Sasuke-chan. Naruto grinned, glint lighting the cerulean eyes that Sasuke knew all too well. Now, I can't cut Samahata's drain ability. However, all I really need is to prevent him from draining chakra from me, since I won't be using any jutsu. So, with a snap and a hiss, a familiar hilt appeared in Naruto's hand. I need something to allow me that. The Raijin copy. Sasuke blinked. Exactly. Naruto grinned. Now, this is a fast copy, meaning a direct copy of the original, in other words set primarily for Raiton affinity. It is a direct antithesis of my Futon affinity. However, if it is balanced with opposite, or at least non-complementary, affinity and more than one type of chakra, the interference should bring a sort of friction to agitate the chakra enough to prevent it from being drained. The blonde rubbed his chin. Well, that and raised the cutting and piercing ability some 200% by introducing the chakra shadow vibration effect, but that's beside the point. I would hate to rain on your parade, dead last, Sasuke said with a frown. But you don't have the Raiton. She trailed off as the Jinchuriki grinned. I don't need the affinity. Naruto said cheerfully, twirling the weapon in his palm so fast it became a blur. I just need it to be affected by it strongly enough for an hour or two. Sasuke blinked. But, even if I channel a jutsu it won't hold and, she paused, her eyes widening a fraction as the blur vanished, the chakra contained in Naruto's palm ceasing to be a weapon with a hiss, leaving only a vaguely violet-tinged sphere. The onyx eyes widened as the obi whispered, sliding down even as the blazing sphere sunk into Sasuke's chest. The Uchiha gasped, falling backwards even as the yukata slid from her body. Before the kunoichi met the ground, a sure hand caught her. Naru, too. Sasuke choked out. The blonde smiled, letting the hilt sink in between Sasuke's breasts, leaving behind no mark save for a faintly glowing motes of light. The kunoichi stiffened, before relaxing as the liquid fire spread through her veins, like a hot wire dragged through her nerves, though there was no pain. Instead, there was a strong, light-headed feeling of euphoria. The lightning cracked, the silk cloth around her body flailing like crazy as the tainted chakra met the weapon. On anyone else, or if made by anyone else, the procedure would fail. Sasuke was sure of that on a level that bypassed simple knowledge and bordered on instinct. But decades of mixing their chakra, of absorbing the taint, the distilled essence of power and life directly from Naruto's chakra system, did the trick. The Senryu Shujutsu connected the copy Ryujin with her aura, drawing, bathing it with power and leaving an imprint, a part of what made Uchiha Sasuke, deep inside the weapon. Naruto smirked, leaning Sasuke's body down just enough to press his hand on the Uchiha's chest. "Oh Rose of the Noble Castle," he chuckled, grabbing the hilt. Sasuke's eyes lit up with red at the same moment the crimson erupted from the blade, the blaze mixing with violet sparks as the shinobi drew his hand and the weapon out of his friend's chest, grasping it surely. Sasuke let herself rest on Naruto's outstretched arm, not bothering to fasten her yukata even as she stared at the weapon grasped in the Jinchuriki's hand. It was odd. She could, well, feel it. Not really, but the vague familiar feeling was there. It was like she could touch it without stretching her arm. A supremely odd feeling, like the Kage Bunshin's returning memory, only both more muted and far more instinctual. Would you kindly get off? Naruto grumbled. Later. Sasuke said absently, bending back a little more to notice several clones moving around the inner temple curiously. She quirked an eyebrow as the statues were cleaned via quick Suiton and Futon jutsu, ink and engravings applied carefully on each. The kunoichi's eyebrow rose slightly as the scrolls were rolled and deposited by each statue, before being pushed into the freshly incorporated seal on the chests. A very familiar seal. Sasuke blinked. Isn't that the Bishamon's dash? Yep. Naruto smirked. The statues shuddered, a series of loud cracks echoing through the temple proper and the courtyard as the statues slid from their resting places. Amazingly, instead of crashing and breaking on the stones, the stone samurai instead landed with surprising smoothness, their bone-white armors glinting in the moonlight. Featureless wore masks down the stone faces as they started gathering in the courtyard in something resembling a formation. Son of a bitch. Sasuke murmured. The samurai drew their stone weaponry, kneeling as one in salute. So, you were saying something about an army? Naruto grinned. That's it for part 4. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.